Hi, welcome back. Are you a low-life loser with no friends, no prospect of friends, no prospect of love? It's probably your fault. And that's what we're here to talk about tonight, is how to be a friend and influence others. Isn't that right?
Yes, that's right.
That's right. So if you struggle with friendship, struggle with love, we have all the answers for you tonight. See you soon. What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Mostly Focused Season 2. We'll call it Season 2 because this is Season 2 of video recording, Mostly Focused. This is technically like Season 4.
I didn't even know the first season ended.
We took like a 3-month break.
It was implied.
Well, now we're back with
Is
Season
this
2.
like some weird Lion King 2.5 kind of thing
Hey,
going
listen,
on?
The Lion King 2.5 with Timon and Pumbaa is pretty
very
good.
good.
It's really good.
Never
really
seen
funny.
it.
Of course you haven't. Disney
Of course
hater
I
over
haven't.
going back to Disney here in like 3 weeks. I can't wait.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
Wow.
can't wait. Probably, well, never mind. All right, so good news. You probably saw our intro, so that means you know what we're talking about today. And if you didn't see our intro, that means JP didn't do his job and he's fired. No, just kidding. Remember,
He's
y'all
like,
remember
thank
when
God.
we were?
Praise the
Oh no,
Lord.
this predates Zach. What was it that JP was like? I'm gonna take my stuff home and go home because he was messing up the mic. What did we call it? Remember something with the cords? He was splicing something. You know, me and you,
Soldering.
soldering the mic.
Excuse me.
If you've been watching on YouTube from the beginning, like second episode,
Yeah.
we were like 40 minutes late recording because
my
JP messed up the mic situation.
I know, it was...
I messed up the mic. Yes, I messed it up.
And then he had to solderize the mics.
Yeah, he had a soldering kit in his car he had to go and get.
And then we just got so tickled for like solderizing was the first counterdicking.
It was. I didn't say it though.
You know.
Y'all said it.
Yeah, I think that was actually more of a Tanner thing. R.I.P.
R.I.P. Tanner,
R.I.P.
God's
Tanner.
plan.
God's
Hashtag.
You're gonna get the full tour tonight. We're changing things up a little bit. We had our intro. Garrett thought that would be a great idea to grab your attention. So if it didn't grab your attention, that's on Garrett. If it did grab your attention, you can thank his wife.
Reply wasn't there.
Also, plug your wife's business.
Living in Purpose.
There
You
we
don't
go.
need to know her business.
Well, she'll get you in shape.
Mhm.
And I'm getting fat again. And I'm
You're about to be getting fat again?
No,
I'm about to be getting...
He's about to go to Disney another time. So
I'm about to get fat again.
I'm about to be like my 200-pound life again. And, my frame isn't built. My frame isn't built for that. So I'm going to have to start running again and exercising. Like today I did pretty good. I know we said we weren't going to talk about things. We've been really structured and planning things
It's
in advance.
inevitable.
But we're more structured. So this is better. Today I only had like 7 vanilla wafers, a hot dog, a few bottles of water,
Pop-Tart.
no Pop-Tarts, no Pop-Tarts, a mini Russell Stover's chocolate rabbit, and a mini Dr. Pepper. That's it. Oh crap! And the bowl of cocoa.
So
My
you're
blood
like,
sugar's crashing
you're like
just
running
thinking
on
about
pure
this.
sugar today.
Yeah, but
He's like a 10-year-old kid.
but I tell you what though, my insurance premium. I've done insurance since then. Listen, I got a super preferred. Super
His
preferred.
insurance for the first time in his life now.
No. Life insurance, $750,000 because I got super preferred. My blood work was perfect, above average.
Prime candidate.
For death. Yes.
Prime candidate for early
I have a
death.
lump right here.
The lymph node.
Well, is it right here?
Yeah, they're all
You
through
feel
there.
it?
They're all through there.
You
I
feel
mean,
it? Put my index.
That's an Adam's apple.
Little lump. I'm afraid I've got turbo COVID cancer, vaccine cancer, and I'm not going to live very long. So, it's inevitable. I told y'all about my bad omen today, which only really makes sense for Garrett at this point.
yeah.
Tanner understood it too, but he didn't respond. But you understood.
Yes.
I literally was like, "Is this a Twilight Zone? Am I on film right now?"
Mhm.
But it's fine. All right. So back to the original statement. Friendship's hard. So tonight we thought we'd come back. This was Zach's idea. Credit. Flowers. Me and Garrett wanted
Thank
to
you.
talk about demons and the supernatural and,
Super practical.
Yeah. And then Zach's like, hey, why don't we basically ease people back into mostly focused, talk about friendship? And we're like, you know what? No resistance there. That's a good idea. And since y'all didn't give me a topic for next week,
I provided
just
two
assumed.
topics,
what was your other topic?
like how we approach the Bible.
Supernaturally. John Piper has a book called Reading the Bible Supernaturally. So tonight we're talking about friendship. What defines a friendship? What is biblical friendship? Some key biblical friendships in the Bible are trials, tribulations, successes in friendship, everything friendship. So if you don't have friends, this may not be the episode for you because you could be incredibly sad
Loser.
by the end of it. If you do have friends, this may make you reconsider your friendships and you'd be like, man, I wish I had a friendship like these guys and Tanner. Tanner's not here, but he's always a ghost man.
I start this
right here.
podcast always questioning my friends.
You start this podcast always questioning your friends.
Yeah.
He's like, why am I here?
Yeah.
We're 170 episodes into mostly film, and that one specifically, I'm always waiting for JP to be like, I'm not doing this anymore. But it is like a therapeutic outlet for me, and I
It's
love
gonna be like Good Will Hunting. I'm just not gonna show up.
Well, I've been going to your place lately, so
Doors are just gonna be
the door's
locked.
gonna be locked. No room for me at the end.
Lights off.
Yeah. No,
And
you're gonna
then we'll
know.
have to do friendship 2.0. You know what would have been? We'll jump into it after this. You know what would have been? We need to go see together as a group. You know what I'm going to say.
No.
How to
On
Train
brand
Your
with
Dragon.
this episode.
Friendship.
There's a new Paul Rudd, Tim Robinson
yeah.
movie coming
Yeah, I know
out
what
called
you're talking
Friendship.
about.
Let's make a plan right now to go see it as a group.
Yes,
I'm good with that.
Garrett, you just nod and say yes.
you'd love it. I'm
You will
telling
love
you.
it.
I would
you
also-
will love it.
Go see How to Train Your Dragon as
Ugh.
well.
I
But
love How to Train Your Dragon, the animated series movies. I don't know if I want to see the live action.
it's a
Shot
shot
for-
for shot.
It is a shot
Yeah.
for shot, which is why I just feel like I need to take a stand against that and go see the Shrouds
We all
instead.
had to stand for
The
something.
good thing is that since it's shot for shot,
Shout out
you-
Hillsong.
like it's gonna be
Bethel?
good. That's the thing.
No.
Yeah, I mean, it looks good, but I don't know. All right, so we're talking about friendship tonight. Biblical friendship. That's not the top. I don't know what we'll call this episode. It's not going to be biblical friendship. That's for sure.
Yes.
You've got a friend in me.
Maybe, maybe I like that. I like that because it's Disney. But
Disney.
this is the
yeah,
untitled,
Yeah, sure, Disney. That's what I meant.
untitled friendship episode. It'll be titled later. So in roughly an hour and 45 minutes, we're going to bring this to you. JP is so generous to provide these notes. Now, I feel like I gave you a little bit of better notes structure this time.
Yeah.
And so Zach gave the
I loved it.
blueprint, I laid the foundation, and JP built the house
Yeah.
for this one.
Yeah.
So,
And we just watch you just
tear it down
build it in front of
minute
us.
by minute.
Yeah, brick by bit.
Garrett
Brick
did
by
nothing.
brick.
What?
Garrett did nothing.
Yeah, I did nothing except
showed
fill in the blank.
Hey, if you noticed, Garrett's mustache is like 2 weeks away from being Kurt Russell from Tombstone. And I very much enjoy that.
That's what people are looking at. His mustache.
That's right. That's right. I'm not even going to say it. I'm not going to
No,
jinx it.
Yeah.
I'm going to jinx it. So, Garrett, let's start with you since,
Yes.
since we're talking about rubbing off on you. Let's talk about, you just said it. I was just saying, just talking about it. Give me just a brief, why does this friendship topic matter to you? Why is it something that grabs your attention, something you're excited to talk about? Because to give JP more flowers, and also he should have thought this through better, he gave us each individual notes to jot down on this living, breathing Google Docs.
I feel
So
like
I took advantage of Garrett's notes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you did.
I'm not in any shared notes right now. I'm just in the general one, so I haven't seen any of your stuff right now. So Garrett, why does friendship matter to you?
Well, I think it's mattered to me a lot more over this past year. Thinking of the friends I had back in my addiction, and even some leading up to my addiction, they weren't very good friends.
Mm-hmm.
And now over the past year, Leslie and I are trying to pour into people as they pour into us as friends, and narrowing that field down essentially.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's it.
perfect.
Yeah.
Zach?
I mean, it was my topic. I should have written something down. But
Yeah,
friendship.
you didn't even touch your notes.
I know. I was busy today, dog.
You've had them for days.
Oh well, I didn't know about it till today or yesterday. Yesterday was Mother's Day.
Did you delete
Go
all
on.
my notes?
Oh yeah, I restored it from
That's what you did. You
10:33 this morning.
What?
Oh, it restored everybody's. So it went back. It took everybody's off.
You wiped it.
You wiped everybody's.
All my notes are gone.
Really?
Oh my gosh. I actually took the time and made my own
Hold on,
notes.
can I back that up?
Back it up.
Put it in reverse, Terry.
Put it in reverse, Terry.
This is why
Here, I'll
JP can't do nice things.
No,
I'll restore it. There you go.
listen, that's why I put 10 minutes of time on that.
Now look.
Oh, I am.
Friendship is important to me. Number one, because
My notes are still gone.
Try refreshing it.
Try refreshing it.
How do I refresh it?
Get out
just
of it.
close it and reopen it. Friendship's important to me. Number one, because my parents modeled it super well. They
Mhm.
always had friends over and were always great hosting. And number two, because,
Oh, okay.
with my faith, the Bible is very explicit that we are not designed to do this alone. And friendships bring, healing and pieces of life that I don't have that I need. And it's the only way to fulfill that need. So
This is why Garrett just read that. He prepared this statement. I added the last sentence on. This is the kind of stuff I did to Garrett's notes, which is why he went and deleted everybody's notes. Or this was my personal favorite. What defines friendship to you? I made it rhyme. So freaking Travis had his phone today reading through it. I was like, Garrett had no clue.
You.
So friendship, this is why I have always been kind of a bros bro. I love dudes in the straightest way possible. I have always been like honestly closer to friends than family in a lot of ways. It's kind of just how I've always been, to the point that I had to talk about it in therapy. Like, why do you feel like you are closer to your friends than your family? That's actually a real thing we need to talk about. But being in our 30s, all having kids, I think friendship is one of those, is more of a weird thing now than it ever has been for a lot of people, including us. Just, old friendships, like I talk about, think about me and Tanner, how it evolves, how you still have to you wake up and you choose to love your wife every day. It's not always, it's something you actually have to choose, a conscious decision. You also have to wake up and choose a friendship. So for me, that's where I am in life, what that looks like, how to maneuver that and not make it weird and all that kind of stuff. So it's just kind of timely for me as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've always struggled with friendship. I've probably had like better relationship with women, just like longer, more average, like day-to-day relationships.
Yeah.
And
Same.
so it's
You've
kind of
always been a bro dude.
No, but I've always got along better with women.
I mean, I did too.
Females. Anyways,
Not
go ahead,
better, okay,
JP.
whatever.
so yeah, I mean, this is, I wouldn't say
Disagree
like,
with you.
I wouldn't say like a touchy subject for me, but it is something that I go struggle with every day. So yeah.
Do?
Yeah, definitely.
So so it's timely for us all. All of us actually have shockingly different reasons, which is good. Tanner actually really wanted to be on this episode, but
But he's dead.
we canceled Mostly Film tonight.
God.
That's the dedication. This is normally Mostly Film night. We postponed a week of Leonardo DiCaprio versus Tom Cruise for this.
Oh, thank God.
Last week's episode was literally the biopic of your life, Rain Man. Just gonna see how long we're just gonna sit and stare. All right, so let's jump into it. Garrett, we'll just kick it back with you. What defines friendship to you?
There was 3 things that I wrote down here for definition of friendship. Thinking about the 3 things that I'm seeking now in friendships is authenticity, consistency, and vulnerability. A lot of times you can, and I like to look at them kind of as a progression. You can kind of find out, it's hard making friends when you're early 30s. And when you had to restart your entire life. And then I came to Faith Center and I had to restart essentially all my friends again.
It goes in.
And so, finding people who are authentic and not just this fake show. I've been around way too many fake people, and I used to be one as well, just kind of like being a chameleon. Wherever I was at, I was that way towards that friend group and this way towards that friend group. But then also the term of consistency. with church, you can go on Sundays and everyone is like, oh, hey, what's up? So glad to see you. But then you don't see them, talk to them again for another week.
I don't do that.
And there's some people that you feel are authentic and that you feel like that, we could probably be friends, but you don't pour in that time with them. You're not consistent. And I think as you are seeking people who are authentic and you're being consistent with developing that relationship, that opens this level of vulnerability to where like you trust someone. So you literally like hand your trust to them and believe that they're not gonna hurt that trust.
Yeah.
And through those three things, that's where we've been able to see a lot of godly relationships take place, a lot of edification between one another and everything. And so, my definition of a friendship used to be, well, who can I get high with? Or, whatever, who am I playing baseball with this summer? Or who am I playing baseball with in college? Those used to be the definitions of my friendships. But now, I look to see if someone's authentic. I look to see if they're consistent. And I look to see if they're vulnerable, because I'm going to be those three things as well.
Yeah. You also, I'm going to push back a little bit on one of the things you said, because I feel like I've been kind of a spectator of your life for 20 plus, almost 20 years now. What, 18, 15, 16, 17 years?
Somewhere in there, yeah.
Yeah, whatever.
What was this? Sorry. I didn't know
about you being a chameleon. I think you've always been fairly, I know there's like trying to fit into different, like you're high, baseball is baseball, like identity things, but compliments you. I feel like you've always been fairly consistent in being yourself, though.
Yeah.
You were being yourself as a drug addict, being yourself as a baseball head, being yourself as now as a Christian. But Garrett, the core of Garrett's still been, I've always thought anytime, every part of life I've been with you has been the same.
Yeah.
And that's not to say like the drug addict's the same as the Christian. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense.
No, and to speak to that part, sometimes there's like an imposter syndrome inside of me, feeling like, well, maybe I'm not actually authentic, or maybe I'm not these things. But I would agree that I've always been able to kind of fit in, but more in my addiction days were those times where my standard of a friendship was, how can I use them to suit a need, and we can still get along, but I'm going to play some sort of different part so I could sleep on their couch or whatever, so you're right. I had all kinds of different friends through high school. When I look at it and I tell people that, and they're like, no, you didn't. I'm like, what are you talking about? I did. I know for a fact I did, because it was my friendship. But
so what's your holy trinity of friendship to you?
Authenticity, consistency, and vulnerability.
And I'm just going to piggyback and jump into mine, because I have authenticity as well, but I'm not going to double down on it because you
read
explained
my
it. No, I almost didn't put it down. I almost tried to just find a synonym to it. I was like, you know what? Authenticity is what I was going to use too, but I just put authentic. So I didn't actually take the same word. But being authentic, obviously, huge part of me. It is the same word, just without the T. Authenticity.
Emphasis on the T.
The T. Hard C.
Let's not start the whole word debate again.
Oh gosh.
You'll get mad at me all over again.
Contemplative.
Contemplative.
Yes.
Garrett's been preaching now longer. He's come onto the contemplative train. I hated that whole series of words. I'm sorry. That was an accident. All right. So authentic, Garrett summed that up well. I'm not going to double down on that. Comfortability for me is a huge part. I am unabashedly who I am. Always have been. I'll be in front of, Pastor John, Pastor Jeff. Look at that. Did y'all hear that? After Daniel's podcast, I
Great job, man.
Pastor, or whatever. Although
very hypocritical of you.
I know. Literally the next day after
changing yourself for your friends.
Exactly. No, it was a joke. The next day after I recorded that podcast on Daniel's Walk by Faith, shout out.
Shout out.
Had my
WBF.
man Marcelo. I wanted to try to get him on here to talk about this episode, but it just didn't work out schedule wise. JP's a tough schedule to crack.
I am.
Anyway, I saw John at church. He came up and said hi to us. I was like, John, took his hand, and I was like, I just made this big thing how I don't say pastor. So I just
he respects it. He respects it. It's okay.
I go into detail why I don't do that on the podcast.
Yeah,
but
don't bury the lead.
Yeah,
Go make him go watch it.
Yeah, go watch it. Go check out our boy Daniel. I still owe him a ski and an L8. Almost canceled the podcast beginning of when he said he's never had either. One, understand. Two, it's crazy. You had both?
Does that determine a friendship?
I love L8.
Yeah.
I've had a ski. It's been a long time.
Okay.
I don't really
As long as
remember.
you've had one of the two. Have you had one of the two?
Oh,
It's
yeah,
hard to live in Kentucky and not have an L8.
That's what I'm upset about Daniel not having either. Anyway, but being comfortable, both me with the person, that person with me, because you have to get used to the hot potato roulette thing about being my friend. You never know what I'm going to say, when I'm going to say it. You just have to trust that deep down, you know that in the right company, I'm going to make sure that my filter's on. Now, my filter might be a little more loose strained than some, but it's still there.
Mm-hmm.
So I need people to be okay with who I am, because I also, on Daniel's podcast, went into detail about some part of me just shifted and changed in like 7th grade. Came back, not sure it was all for the good, all for the bad. There's pros and cons of each, but just being comfortable, both sides, big part of it for me. Joyful people. I cannot have pessimistic people in my life. I think I've said it before. One of my district managers described me as nauseatingly upbeat and optimistic before, and she meant it as like a dig. But I was like, that's the best description of me I think I've ever heard. I am nauseatingly upbeat and optimistic for a lot of people. So I need people that at least can reach half of that. Like they're just happy, look at the life on the brighter side. That's a big part of it for me. It's just joyful people and people that want to move beyond just like a cursory friendship, that want to move into like a brotherhood, but like a family kind of thing. I've always said that like family friendships are almost more like family than family to me. And when I kind of like foxes, I kind of mate for life. Do dragonflies mate for life? Me and Abby were having this conversation the other day. Y'all know?
Those penguins.
Penguins do too, because I've seen the pebble and the penguin. They give them a pebble, and that's how they get chosen.
Seems like a seahorse thing.
No, seahorses be freaks.
Yeah, seahorses are wild.
Seahorses are freaks.
Well, no, seriously, they be doing gay stuff. Have you seen it?
They're all over the place.
Or that I want to.
No.
I'll send you a video later.
Oh, can't wait.
Anyway, the about comfortability.
Yeah, I was going to say this speaks exactly what you were just saying.
It's not just nervously laughing.
Well, he's comfortable. I'm uncomfortable. So,
but you're here, and that's comfortability. So there you go.
Man.
But no,
That's
and
good.
that family like part of it, I long for something beyond like, I'm not saying I need it out the gate, but like over years time, like you really develops into like a family, someone I can like call a brother, and not like in like the, the flaccid, passively.
Act like
the flaccidly? Is that what you said? There's no way.
Never in the context of friendship. Using that.
Wow.
I shouldn't have brought up sodorizing. That was my karma.
This is insanity.
Season 2, y'all.
Yeah.
Oh man. Okay. Passively throw around brother.
There you go.
That's I meant what happened. I can tell you. I was thinking flippantly and passively, and that's how I got to flaccidly.
You know what? I get that.
So that's where that happened.
I get that.
Anyway, so that's where I am with family. Then the family like thing. So either one of you two go, please. Go, please.
Zach, you go, because my notes.
Okay. I mean, you guys are definitely stealing all the words that we like to use for friendships.
But for you, Zach.
Who's we?
You too.
People in general.
No, if it was Legion for we or many.
Yeah.
Next time.
You know me. I like when I consider friends, I consider myself to be like, I have a lot of friends, or at least I think I do.
Overachiever over here, dang.
But like,
You should see his Rolodex.
but like I don't want to like rank my friends, but I know there are friends that are
Bring back MySpace right now.
No, that's what this is. It's a tier list of our friends.
You stay around to the end.
but I know that there are friends that are my friends only because I see them at a certain place or something. But
Friends by proximity.
when I think about like friends that I want to go and hang out with and do stuff, the biggest thing for me is, do I like when I'm done hanging out with them, am I drained or do I feel full of life afterwards? You know, I have friends that, you know, you hang out with them and they drain you. But shut your mouth.
You just gotta keep going.
And,
It'll pass.
But there are friends too that, like, when I'm done, like, I feel full of life. I feel energized. I feel excited. I feel ready for the rest of the week, etc. And that's what I'm looking for, is someone who can build me up in that way. Not just like meet a need or something like that, but someone that makes me feel as true to myself as I can be. I tend to lean toward the overtly optimistic as well. You know, I have no problems talking to strangers. I have no problems, to some degree, like almost bullying people into friendship. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, I know.
And
the only reason me and JP are friends right now.
I have whenever the time comes about friendships that were successful, I've got a good JP story.
I have a JP story too.
JP is the person I've known the longest of this group right here. So if I give any examples of this group, it'll be JP probably.
I have some for Garrett, but Tanner technically is my longest last 10-year friendship.
But
R.I.P.
yeah, friendship should be
R.I.P.
something that build us up and make us excited and give us life. And of course, there comes with vulnerability with that. There comes with responsibility. I want to be friends with someone who's responsible for my feelings and responsible for what they say and how they say it. And even if they make a mistake, they you know, are willing to be like, hey, I'm sorry. And who's willing to not take everything that I say that's probably insensitive or something and hold it against me forever, but that's willing to, you know, forgive and willing to be not even just forgive, but be quick to forgive. I think that's super important for me. And someone who like can take the best of me and also like I could just be like, hey, today sucked. And them not freak out. And them not, you know, question everything about me or anything like that.
Is this the introduction?
This is the foundation.
This
Okay,
is
good.
part
Okay,
one.
I was
You're
confused.
panicking?
I was confused.
No, we're into the foundation.
Okay.
Speaking of which, season 3 trailer looks great. Of the foundation.
Great
Not watched.
insight, Zach. Thank you for
It was
that.
good.
Yeah.
It was good.
Very great.
JP.
Yeah. What defines friendship to me is, you know, where am I comfortable? But like for how I express it, it's probably more loyalty and consistency are like really big for me. Just that level of comfort and no expectations. So that's kind of really big. The expectation thing is something the past probably 3 or 4 years.
Do you hear that a lot in marriage? How does that, when you were talking about like a friendship, bro to bro, what does that look like for you? Expectations?
Oh,
What
I
do you
mean, it's
define
like
as that?
it's like when I look at when I look at a relationship, a friendship with somebody, what do I expect to get out of that? When really that's the most transactional, like that.
Yeah, I was like, that sounds so shallow.
Yeah.
What can I get out of this friendship?
That's how I viewed, you know, that's how I viewed it in the past. So, it's been a lot of restructuring for that, and it's made friendship harder because I struggle. You know, we'll talk about it, where I have my own struggles that play into how I view other friendships, and you know, a lot of times it starts with you. It's not you, it's me type of thing. So yeah.
Who's your longest tenured friend then?
I mean, I really met both of you guys around the same time.
Me and Zach?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah, because I really started.
I thought y'all have been friends like 20 years.
No. I mean, when
we found out that we went to the same church when we were like 4, but yeah, we met right around 2012.
I have
yeah.
I'm one of your longest tenured friends.
Yeah.
Who knew? I learned something. I feel like I have higher responsibility now as a friend.
It was
Oh, no.
like 2011,
you're good.
2012 that I met JP
Yeah.
officially
Whoa.
for the first time.
But I mean, heck, that's like 15 years now.
13,
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
We figured out that we've played baseball against each other and all that throughout the years, but we didn't know each other.
So what is both of you then? Why don't you just do it for each other? Because I was going to do mine for Garrett and Tanner, really.
Yeah.
Because I got like 30 years with Tanner, like 20 plus with Garrett now. What have you done to maintain your longer lasting? Zach, it doesn't have to be just JP, but you two. Like, what are y'all's longest? How did you guys maintain your friendships? Like, what is your secret sauce?
I mean, it's probably just the no, like I said earlier, like no expectations. Like Zach and Alexa have really helped me, and Caitlin to help kind of break that. Like, we just need to hang out and literally just sit in the same room together. We don't have to.
I'm going to go ahead and pump the brakes though right now.
Yeah.
All of our wives are our best friends.
Yeah.
We're not talking about our wives.
No, we're not talking about our wives.
Just want to make sure I could see Garrett's wheels moving over there. Like, you mentioned Caitlin. I'm about to say what good friend I have in Leslie.
Yeah, there's been a bunch of times that
That was zero thought in my brain, by the way.
there's been a bunch of times that like we go to their house or they come to ours and literally just not doing anything.
Yeah.
It's more of just like, and I don't mean this in the shallow sense, but friendship by proximity, like just being around people.
See, people think I need to be entertained or I need to entertain. Sometimes I just want to watch a movie in silence with bros.
Yeah.
Or like play It Takes Two, but hopefully with a friend that'll finish the game with me.
Yeah.
All right, sorry. Go
Thinking
ahead.
about JP's comment over here.
Yeah.
In real deep thought.
But no, that's been a big part of it. And I mean, too, like we have a bigger friend group that's, outside of that helps kind of
and
spread that
as far
along.
as like consistency, our little group, the four of us, and JP knows who we're talking about. We've been very consistent with our. It's been harder since she has June, or since they have June. But even before that, I mean, we're going on years of like monthly or twice a month, just us hanging out, we've done everything. Play cards.
Just consistent,
whatever.
Like
movie,
it's
anything.
more of a family type of setting instead of like a get friends together and party type of thing that you grow up kind of used to.
Yeah.
So
and that's always that hard. And I'll talk about it towards the end when we talk about what it's so hard, that transition from like adolescence partying friendship to then once you've whether it's Christianity, Christ or not, that growing out of the party lifestyle and then trying to figure out how your friends sober.
Yeah.
How to hang out sober. That was a hard adjustment too, but we'll talk about that later. All right. Is that the end of your thoughts? Yeah. Okay. So for me, Tanner is my longest tenured friend since like second grade. So it's like 1999, 2000, something like that. So 25, 26 years, whatever.
Well, I was in second grade when the towers fell. So you were in third. Yeah. So it was like 2000.
Yeah.
That's how I.
Yeah. Everything about the towers. Yeah. You know what's probably crazy? Some people watching this right now are like, what towers?
The twin
towers. And I'm not talking about, I don't know any famous twins. So
okay.
Never mind.
There's a whole movie about it called The Two Towers.
Oh, I thought you were going to say The Parent Trap. And I was like, Lindsay Lohan is only one person. But when I was a kid, I thought it was two.
That was a poorly made Lord of the Rings joke. So.
Wow. We all are there now.
Dang.
That's good. That's great.
Wow.
I think for me and Tanner, we've been very close for the majority of our friendship. Had a brief blip in high school where I was just nutso party. He was straight and narrow, basketball, protecting his career thing, but we still hung out at church. It's like kind of like a secret friendship, like an affair of friendships. Like no one knew we were hanging out.
A flaccid friendship.
No, it was more of an erect friendship, but the opposite. Like an erecting a monument towards friendship. Erect doesn't have to mean anything sexual.
Explaining it.
Yeah.
It's going to make it.
No, it doesn't. It's fine. But I think the key for our friendship over the year is definitely comfortability. And honestly, very similar to JP. It's funny how much they kind of mirror each other. I had to, and still do, less so now because we have 25 plus years of friendship though, is I have to kind of reach down and pull Tanner out to do things and consistently pull, make him do things. So for years, it was just breaking down barriers, building comfortability, building trust. I don't think any of us talked about trust. Maybe you mentioned it or talked about it briefly, but I think
loyalty is pretty close to
loyalty
that.
and trust, looking at like, there's things I know about friends that I will take literally to my grave. Like never share.
Like this story.
Like, I can't wait. It's fun fact. I have
what you've done.
Garrett's sweating right now too. There's this code word I have that if someone invokes it, it means I'm taking it to my grave. It's called a ranger. So someone's like, hey, ranger, seriously, ranger. I means I button up. I listen. It depends on what it is. I may laugh. Like someone recently invoked ranger and I just started busting out laughing really hard. Doesn't mean it's anything like life, altering, but, I think comfortability, trust, maintaining loyalty, and just I think being adaptable. Adaptability in a friendship is very important. That doesn't mean you're trying to change the other person. Because outside of Garrett, I think all of my other friends, and then, you and I are becoming closer and closer over time goes on. You may be more like Garrett and me, but, jury's out because we're still a little different. Garrett's like the closest one to being like a mirror of me.
Yeah.
Out of all my friends, everybody else is more JP, Tanner, Kyle, Ben, David, like that way more introverted, reserved.
It's funny. If you were to get all those friends in a room together and with you, and then you would leave, it would be the most quiet room you'd ever imagine. I've been in that room. It's awkward.
I've been there. Yeah.
But the crazy thing is, when you add a me or Garrett in there, it's like everybo's known each other for their whole life.
Oh, yeah.
It sucks sometimes being a lightning rod because
Jesus.
It does. But because I've walked back into those rooms, everybody's like, I'm going to go. I'm
going to go. Just Irish goodbye.
Yeah, I'm not having fun anymore. But no, I think being adaptable, learning how to, push when you need to push, pull back when you need to pull back. And that's something that I always continually struggle with. And,
I'll brag real fast on adaptability of the fact that like when we had Ella, it changed like nothing with JP and Caitlin or any of our other friends. They melded right, like perfectly into life with a baby. And, they were willing to come to our house and that kind of stuff. And I'm hoping that we're doing the same where, having June doesn't feel like negative to being friends.
Because having especially a newborn, you're going through it.
Yeah.
You feel, and now I feel like it when you're going through the three-nager years too. You just feel like a burden to people. Bruh. Sometimes when you're out, it's like, man, these people are annoyed with me. They're annoyed with my kid.
Yeah.
But 9 times out of 10, they're not. They've either been there, done that, or they just don't care. But anyway, last thing, I think one of the bigger things, talking about Tanner, is also just transparency, like real transparency. We worked together for a long time, and we drove to work every day together, worked in the same vicinity every day together for years, on top of just being friends for years. And it got to a boiling point. You're with somebody that long. I mean, we were like, looking back on it, I was literally playing in my head while you were talking, I almost started smirking. It was the most homoerotic thing ever looking back on it. We were in the bottom of this houseboat. I don't remember what we were mouthing about to each other. Well, this is post-salvation. And I just like 2-hand shoved him up against the wall. Then he in a tiny space. He like had his arms up around my thing, pushed me up against the wall. Yeah, I'm serious. Like it wasn't funny or gay then, but looking back on it now.
Were you guys fighting?
Yeah. Yeah, like it was like our friendship kept us from throwing punches, but it was like, I'm talking razor thin there. And I remember I was poking the bear. It was me. I could tell I was getting a rise out of him, and we were just at a breaking point, and we both snapped. And I remember I think we slapped each other with sandpaper or something. It was bad. It wasn't good. But looking back on it now,
manly
this was pre-Walgreens, correct?
Oh yeah, this was like 2013.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Yeah.
This was like a year post salvation. But it was, looking back on it though, it was possibly. Are you texting Tanner right now?
Oh no.
Oh yes, so you had your phone turned away from us all.
His best friend.
I'm trying to.
He's texting one of his friends right now. But hey, did this fight? Was it gay? did we accidentally kiss?
Ask Facebook for us, please.
Yeah, please.
Ask Facebook.
No, yeah, go to Facebook. Hey, I accidentally kissed my friend during a fight. Is that gay? But no, I think, but me and Tanner have always had that relationship where we can really hash it out to the point of throwing hands and then hug it out afterwards. You know what I mean? Now, granted, we're older, more mature, don't have to do that. But I think just being able to really vent when you're mad at one another, which, like I said, doesn't happen as... Garrett just texted the group to ask Tanner a question. Poor Tanner. His Sunday mornings, he gets all these inside jokes he has no clue about. And then tonight, he's just sweating bullets. I know it. But anyway, that's, loyalty, trust, honesty, transparency, and adaptability. That's what maintains our relationships. Me and Garrett. Tanner just responded, "I love you, hot dog." I don't know what this means. I didn't tell you that part of the story.
We live in. Yeah.
Anyway, so that's Garrett.
Yeah. I think the best thing that was said is the no expectations part. And that I can speak to that with our friendship. I look at it whenever I got clean and I started working at Walgreens again, it was really hard for me I was like, oh man, I'm not the person I used to be all those years ago, and still trying to like rediscover myself after suppressing, my joy and happiness and stuff like that through my addiction. But being around you, and then I was able to hang out with a friend that I was friends with in elementary school. His name's Storm, and there was no expectations there. And that's one of the things that Leslie and I look for in friendships now. It's like, there's not that expectation. And I will tell you, like, being ordained and everything, it feels like there is this expectation with a lot of people, and there should be that expectation with a lot of people. But like, we can go and have breakfast on Fridays, and there's not this expectation. You and I, Jonathan and I can go and have breakfast on Fridays, and there's not this expectation of like, I have to be always, I am a pastor always, and that's part of my calling. But at the same time, it's like, you're my friend.
I'd also be the first one to tell you to knock it off too if you were being reserved.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it's just nice, having friends where there is no expectations, where you can sit in the same room with one another. And, one thing that I love about some of the friends that we have now is we have kids all around the same age. And so we'll be all sitting at a kitchen table talking, and all of our kids are just running around playing. They're outside playing, they're doing things. And, we just, we have a good time. So
how long was I trying to get his attention before I smacked his hand?
So
I was literally doing this over here. I was going,
okay.
All right, anyway, cool. I was trying to not talk into the mic.
I appreciate that.
But now it's too much.
Yeah.
Anyway, this last Friday, we went to the park, and I tried to run up a skateboard ramp.
Oh man, so
I meant to edit that.
Dude, I am so unathletic now.
I was going to add some like Creed to
if
it.
I am not behind,
oh my God.
If I'm not behind a drum set or on a basketball court, I am the most unathletic person on the planet.
I don't think athleticism comes into play for a drum cake. Playing drums.
I don't know. I'd say Travis Barker's pretty athletic. And Garrett did pretty good his first drum lesson. I bet he hadn't practiced a lick this week, though.
I have, actually.
Oh, well, good.
So
on Lorelei's
clip
little
that
kit
chat.
that he has.
No, I had him order a real practice pad.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
gotcha.
So, all right. I'm going to ask you. You mentioned it first. You said one way you were able to kind of like easily like mesh into friendships, and because you had a good upbringing of seeing your parents fellowship. So you did see your parents have strong friendships. What was that like for you?
Yeah, my parents were life grouping before that was like.
It's called swingers.
The thing. No.
What? Okay.
Life grouping before life grouping. That's called a swinger party.
Okay.
Yeah.
Never mind.
That's insane, Jonathan.
When I was
listen, the 80s were a wild time. Okay.
When I was young, I wasn't alive in the 80s.
Never mind.
Growing up, my parents had what I'll call a life group, but they called it Supper 8.
Supper 8?
Supper 8. And it was 4 couples and their families, so 8 adults. And once a month, or I think either once a month or like every 3 weeks, they went around the rotation of the houses, and we would have, food at whatever house it was that time, and everyone would contribute. We would go and eat, and it wasn't like Bible study. It wasn't anything like that. It was like they got together and played games with their friends.
Yeah.
And they all had kids, and we were all semi self-sufficient, so we'd go do our own thing. And we'd be there till 2 a.m. My parents up playing games with their friends. And so, that instilled like a sense of, oh, this is normal. This is what healthy adult friendship looks like, is just getting together on a regular basis and hanging out, and not, I think what you're getting at is like not over spiritualizing it. Not
he's
leaving. Yeah, he's like, I gotta get out of here.
All right, hey
It's cat
guys,
cut from TikTok.
welcome back to the video aspect of it. JP's fuming, so I'm not going to make any light at JP right now.
No, I'm good. It doesn't matter. None of this matters.
The video cut out. We're sorry. I had a gut feeling. I just don't know why. Maybe the Holy Spirit was telling me, because he cares so much about our mostly focused video. I texted Garrett, like, hey, go check, make sure this is still recording. And Garrett goes, nope. And you know what's funny though? The reason, it was mostly not focused. It was not focused. And
Wow.
who knew it would quit videotaping because it's not focused?
I don't
That's
know.
wild to me.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry that you missed like 30 minutes of footage or so,
all
but you
good.
can still hear it.
Yeah, absolutely.
JP will put something.
Yeah, we're not exactly doing anything real exciting.
No,
sitting here on the couch.
No. JP can put like some clip of like bloopers or something up there,
An episode of America's Funniest Home Videos.
Yeah. Or me running up the skateboard ramp.
Just over and over.
Just put
again.
just like an old clip of like Mystery Science Theater
Or
3000
honestly,
on
you could
there.
probably just put us on the couch from the last episode and no one would know the difference.
Like, hey, they changed shirts.
And then all of a sudden, blip. Whoa, they're in a different outfit again. This makes no sense.
Yeah.
It'd be like an anime dub. But we're talking about his family
Yeah.
and the life group and the people they had over there and the fellowshipping they had.
So that's the gist of it. I get my desire to host and to play games with friends and all that kind of stuff. I get it honest. That's my parents.
Mhm.
They're great at hosting. They're great at all of that kind of stuff. They're great at people coming over with no expectations, and all that kind of stuff. And so with that being the model growing up, it gave me a healthy sense of friendship and how to be a friend and how to do X, Y, or Z. Because if anyone in that group had something they needed, that group rallied around, kind of like how they describe a life group should.
Yeah.
And that developed into something, even deeper. One of those couples ended up being my godparents, and one of those couples were Lauren and Joan Biggers, who, now we serve with their, they were the closest outside of my actual brother to other siblings that I had.
Mhm.
And all of that kind of stuff developed out of my parents having healthy friendships.
Yeah.
So,
very similar. My parents being preachers. You see some really good friendships and you see some that were obviously people that were taking advantage of being close to the preacher, So on one hand, I got to see genuine friendships, but shockingly enough, I put in here in the notes some names. Almost all of those friendships were not in the church friendships, like the Lindsays and the Chessers, which Kenny and Mary Chesser are pastors, but they live in Tennessee, always have. One of my dad's best friends. He's like the main guy. Him and David Parrish, and used to be JT Parrish and Rick Clendon, and were like his core group of people that preached for him when he was out, or he'd go preach for them or whatever. But Kenny and Mary Chesser, Brian and Karen Lindsay, and then from the church, Steve and Lisa Hall, like those are like seeing them and those friendships elevate, my whole lifetime, and still beyond today. And I think a big part of that, specifically with the non-church friendships, is the expectations thing. Like they weren't their pastors. There was no like quid pro quo, that kind of thing with it. It was just like, hey, we love you for who you are. Like were friends. Like I know like Brian and Karen predated him being a pastor. They knew my mom and dad in high school. And then like the Chesters, they met through preaching, but then maintained that friendship after. And it was just, there's nothing they could do for them or vice versa. It was just genuine friendship. And when you're in like, like Garrett, like with you, like serving in ministry, like in like a forward facing ministry kind of thing like that, it's so hard to know who is not preying on you is probably the too strong of a word, but who's leeching onto you for what you can do for them, how you can elevate them. And, and maybe that's why another shout out to Daniel, WBF. I go really into detail about this, or in more detail than I'm going to here, about how that has kind of warped and put me guarded on some friendships, and especially my family, and like protective of that kind of stuff. But being able to see those handful of really close friendships and just how unique they were because they weren't in the church. Because most people would think, oh yeah, your preacher's kid, they're all church friends with the church people, but that's actually not the case.
Right.
So I think it taught me a good, healthy way to be friends with understanding boundaries, understanding expectations, and then just consistency. The one family lived in Milan, Tennessee, one lived in Dyersburg, Tennessee. So you had to coordinate. We'd go spend a week in Milan, then they'd come down here and spend a long weekend. But they actually had to reach out and maintain like those are only a few hours away a piece, couple hours away, but it's still like you had to maintain a friendship. It wasn't easy necessarily. So it just taught me how to show up for my friends and be proactive. And I mean, you guys can say how crazy I am. We know this, but I'm never not going to be reaching out to do something. I'm not. I got to see my friends. That's just how it is. I need to see people. I thrive off friendship, and I think that's part of what I saw growing up too. Was that proactive part of the friendship? So, JP.
I think for family, what the example is set for me. My family was always busy, and so a lot of friendships that I saw displayed was through activities. So I mean, there was a handful of families just through church that kind of like the same with Zach, of where it was just super casual and there wasn't really any agendas to, it's not like they all get together and talk about the church type of stuff. It's you get together and you just play cards or whatever. Mm-hmm. And, that was good. But it was mainly like parents are volunteer firefighters my whole life. And so
both of them?
Yeah. Yeah. My mom.
Your dad was. I didn't know your mom.
My mom.
Huh.
Yeah. Mom is too. She did the whole.
Did she ever put out a fire with prayer?
No, she does the whole EMT thing. So yeah, that we would spend a lot of time.
Liked that one down there.
Yeah. So yeah, it was just a lot of just activities type stuff. Yeah. And so that's kind of how it was framed for me.
Mm-hmm. And Garrett, I know you kind of moved around and had
dang, Oliver Twist over there.
You had a mom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Y'all didn't get my joke in the group chat. I had to explain it to Garrett. Garrett missed it. When we were talking about, I got to go revisit this real quick. In the group chat, when we were talking about.
You don't have to.
No,
I have to. I have to.
You're so far gone.
No, it's important. We were talking about Tanner's dad having that book he handed down, remember? About gay sons or whatever. And I was like,
yes.
I was like, Garrett's dad also. Wait, never mind. Yes. No, I didn't say dad. I said Garrett also was handed down. ... Wait, never mind. Doesn't apply here. And no one said anything. And then like 30 minutes later said, no one got the joke.
Well, I got it, but it didn't bear a response. Yeah. It didn't warrant a response.
Oh, I thought it was great. I was cackling over here like, because Garrett doesn't have a dad.
I don't remember.
But you do have a dad.
Yeah.
Shout out Phil, but Philip. And that's his name?
No.
Is that not his name, Philip?
My dad's name is not Philip. No, it's Patrick.
Patrick. Dang. I was so close.
Yeah. Anyways.
Sorry, I didn't mean to roast your childhood.
No, it's fine. It's fine. And that goes because I see my mom have some good relationships, friendships. But when I think about a model of friendship, I don't see that a whole lot in my childhood growing up because my mom worked multiple jobs and she was gone a lot of the times, and so I didn't really have a blueprint of friendships modeled to me by my parent.
Hard T.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I had to figure that out kind of all on my own. But I will say I'm thankful for Jordan's parents. They modeled some pretty good friendships.
John and Gloria?
Yeah, John and Gloria.
How do I know their names, but not Patrick?
Well, I mean, has it really been in the picture? Yeah. We talk now, though, so it's coming back around. But yeah, I mean, friendships weren't really modeled by adults around me that well. I didn't grow up in necessarily like a place where we, no offense, like had people to come over and play games and stuff like that.
How would we take offense to that?
I don't know.
Hey, we had fun as kids.
Yeah, I don't know if that would have warranted a offense or not. So I'm just throwing it out there.
Well, now I'm offended because you thought it would.
Yeah. Well, got to cover your bases.
Garrett didn't know we were going to unpack childhood trauma tonight and just roasting
it's
for
in
it.
the subtitle. It will be in the subtitle.
Yeah, but
what?
I said it's in the subtitle.
What, childhood trauma?
No.
Sorry, I'm a literal person on accident sometimes.
But no, I mean, it's my friendships have had to discover how to be a friend, through multiple facets.
Which, this is a good follow-up. Do you think we have learned to be good friends, or are we still actively learning? And with your background being a little different than ours, do you think you learned to do that? Are you still learning to do that? Or have you kind of like, I got it now. I have the blueprint. It doesn't really change friend to friend.
Well, no, I mean, as of right now, I'm actively still learning. It takes intentionality to be friends with somebody. I can't just expect someone to invite me to do something if I never invite them to do something. I can't expect someone to edify me if I'm never edifying them. I can't ever expect to have friends if I myself am not being a friend. And so I'm still learning, I'm still making sure.
It's so weird. We're like a bunch of dogs at the dog park, it's just so strange friendship, especially new friendships.
It is. And it's like, what is this? I don't know.
A butt.
It's a butt and I'm going to sniff it. Cool. I like that one. And isn't it friendship? It's like, you just find someone, you're like, you know what? I kind of like that person. So let's hang out more.
Just gotta stick around.
We're just going to start sticking around each other. Put our noses where
it's even weirder though, thinking about it's cool to make friendships in your adult life, which we'll talk about later, but like it's so weird how you became friends as kids, middle school, high school. Like
it's very similar.
Like me and Dakota Gibbs, which that's one of the ones I'm gonna talk about. We're not really friends anymore. We're acquaintances again, but like you remember, we were like best friends all through high school and early college. We literally became friends sophomore year because I unzipped his jacket one day and then he unzipped mine, like in a joking way. I know that's also very, very homoerotic. There's a trend going on here, but we were best friends from that day on.
Yeah.
And just weird. Like that started a friendship. You and I went to the poop together.
That's right.
That really solidified a friendship.
That explains so much.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, JP, what about you? Do you think we've learned how to be good friends, or are you still learning?
God, I'm definitely still learning. Yeah. I think most times I'm a terrible friend. So yeah.
Zach?
Yeah, I like to think that I'm a good friend, but I constantly, find places that I can improve, and so I would say still learning.
Yeah, I think it's harder for me to say I'm still learning, more so that I'm just being adaptable. Like I feel like
you got to learn to adapt.
You do on a case by case basis, I guess, but like I don't feel like I have changed my formula to being friends. It's just kind of like you accept me or you don't. And for as weird as I can be, I'm kind of pick up on that pretty quick. Like, oh, this person's not my people. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And I move on. Other than that, I'm like 3D glasses, man. I'm like right in your face all the time. And that's, you accept it or you don't. That's just kind of my scattershot approach to friendship. So we've talked about our own ideas, our own experiences, kind of look at what the Bible has to say about the friendship. Because believe it or not, Mostly Focused is a faith-based podcast. If you haven't picked that up by now. So we'll start with, Pastor.
I don't like that.
Zachary Griffin, youth pastor, middle school pastor, middle school director.
No, I'm not pastor or anything. I am
Pastor Garrett.
Leader.
Let's start with you here.
Pastor of anything.
What are some biblical examples of true friendship between men specifically, and no one from Sodom and Gomorrah.
Well, I'm going to go back to Mark 2:1-5.
Of course,
and,
you are.
Shared a little bit about this, something that was placed on my heart because I'm reading through the Gospels from the perspective of how like a biblical man is to operate, but not just necessarily a man, but just a person in general.
But for context, men specifically for now.
Specifically right now is like,
Yeah.
how am I as a man to operate?
Mhm.
And one of my favorite stories is the paralytic and the 4 men who are carrying him. And because you see the qualities of a friend through that entire story, especially I think it's in verse 4 where they carried the man. They figured they problem solved for the man on how to get around all the people. And then they lowered the man down, and Jesus saw the faith of all of them together.
Yeah, people miss that part of it.
Yeah.
They just think about the man who was lowered.
Right. And so, the biggest thing that I took away from that is that they had to first share the gospel. They had to share their experiences. They had to be authentic and vulnerable to this person, because we don't know if they knew this paralytic from the beginning or if this was some man that they saw or whatever it may be. But we know that this person picked him up when he couldn't go, carried him to where he couldn't go, lowered him to where he couldn't go, but he had to trust them and believe them that they were looking out for his best interests, and that was bringing him to Jesus. And that's never mind. But that's the bottom line.
Go ahead and share it. There's no pullbacks here. No pullouts here.
I was going to say Stone Cold Steve Austin. That's the bottom line.
That was totally appropriate.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
But that's the bottom line of friendships for me today, and biblical friendships. That's where you draw the line between we're going to talk about Christian and non-Christian friendships. Well, the line is Christ. And are my friends going to take me to Jesus when I'm having a bad day? Listen, Jonathan and I can sit here and talk about funny stuff or do whatever, but at the end of the day, if I said, "Hey man, Leslie and I are having a bad time, I need you to pray for us," or whatever it may be, and you two guys as well, it's like, our friendship. Yeah.
What is this prayer you talking about?
This is your SOL.
Praising out of the question.
Yeah.
Yes.
Don't ask me to pray for you because I won't do it.
Yeah.
But
thoughts, all the thoughts.
That's
prayers.
You guys would point me to Jesus if I was having a time where I needed you to point me to Jesus.
Well, yeah, as much as we cut up here, I think we've almost all had those genuine, real. I mean, we all know trenches with friendship here. You know, you see our goofy side here, but you don't get to this point in life in friendships without going through the trenches too with each other.
Yeah. So for me, that's the best biblical example that I enjoy I teach it to the youth. I teach it to guys in recovery. And this was a staple for me when I first got sober, on figuring out how to have friends, and not just what a friend should look like, but what I should look like to my friends as well. If I don't do these things, then I'm not fulfilling the thing I'm not fulfilling the friendship role that God has called me to be with another person. And so this is like a foundational text for my life is these few verses here.
You just hit all 4 bullet points in one. That's amazing.
You know why? Because that man made some notes.
I made notes too.
Yeah.
But
Shout out JP.
I'm going right now.
Go for it.
Ready?
Mm-hmm.
That's a good one. I saw that and I didn't use it because that was one of the ones I thought about because it was in King of Kings, that movie, so it was fresh on my mind.
Yeah, great movie.
I have a few examples. I have
really long necks though.
Yeah. Anyway. Did you see it?
Yeah,
it was pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Oscar Isaac was born to play Jesus, voice of Jesus. He was great.
And Mark Hamill in there.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
I was nervous about the movie because of people like Mark Hamill being in it. I was like, there's going to be some bad. Now they did alter some scripture in there. I don't know if you caught it.
I didn't realize it was a Korean movie. It's
Korean Jesus.
It's made by a Korean
it's
studio.
Like the #1 best-selling Korean movie ever.
Yeah.
Wow. Who knew?
Besides Godzilla.
Anyway, so the paralytics.
I think Godzilla's Japanese.
It is.
That's how it's moving on. Obviously, Jonathan and David, the big one for me. And growing up, the whole Jonathan I'm way more into the Aaron and Moses than I am Jonathan and David. However, Jonathan and David, I want to hit on one specific thing. I used to think I always wanted to felt like I should be the David of the story, even though my name's Jonathan. So, the irony's not lost on me. But, I always thought that I was the David in all the friendships, because I'm prideful and arrogant. We all know this. I've established this. But as I've gotten older, say specifically the last few years, that realizing who Jonathan is, what he did, there is no David without Jonathan, really, at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And that's that. I don't know why the last few years that's just dawned on me, but I always found myself as the David of the story. Because that's how you read the Bible, everybody reads it through certain lenses. And
do you remember when I texted you that? This was like a year and a half ago.
I was at Disney. I forgot about it until this moment.
You were my Jonathan.
Yeah. Maybe I was mad. I was like, no I'm
pun
David.
intended.
I'm David. I forgot about that till you just said that. Yeah, it was a really nice. Made me tear up at Star Wars. I was at Star Wars Land reading that.
Yeah,
it was a nice message. I think it took me like a day to respond back to you too.
That's fine.
But I was at Disney anyway. So looking back on it, when I was kind of low key researching, putting notes into this, I was like, man, my whole mindset on Jonathan and David has really changed. But yes, that's the most cliche biblical answer. Yes. Elijah and Elisha is a really neat, interesting one for me. I love their friendship because they have like the closest thing to what's called like what I would consider modern bromance. Like their whole story is kind of funny if you go back and read some of it, and read context of it. But like Elijah told Elisha like 5 times, or I think it was 4 times actually, but to stay where he was. Elijah was going to be with the Lord, and Elisha was like Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Qui-Gon's like, no, I'm not leaving you, Master, blah, blah. So he goes off, and the Lord literally just takes him up in a chariot and like throws Elisha out of the way. But like Elisha wasn't leaving Elijah's side. Like even though Elijah was facing like going to die, Elisha still wanted to be right there with him and to his final.
Do you think he quoted Ruth 1:16-17? Where you go, I go. Where you die, I die.
Where you go, I go. Anyway, and then lastly, and one of my favorite ones is Aaron and Moses.
Brothers, bro.
Yeah, but it's
brothers, bro.
It's a good one because you always think about Moses. You don't think about Aaron, even though Aaron led them to be godless golden calf worshipers. But he also was the one who held Moses' arms, in the battle to keep the staff above, so they would be victorious over whoever they were fighting at the time.
Sure.
I think that's their story, right? I'm not losing that. Yeah. I went based on memory. That's about the most notes I did. But, I think of that, and I think that's what I want in a friend. That when I'm struggling or you're struggling, I want somebody that's going to come up behind me and not take the staff and take the victory, but help me achieve the victory, help me get through whatever I'm going to without because you can over insert yourself into people's lives. Or, in some cases, whether it's be like, look at Moses in the battle. It'd be easy for Aaron to be like, I'm going to take the staff and I'm going to finish this out myself for the glory. But no, he held Moses' arms up with the staff, and Moses, air quotes, achieved victory. Yeah. But he wouldn't have got it without Aaron.
Right.
We all need Aarons in our lives, but we also need Moseses. We all need Jonathans in our life, but we also need the Davids. And I think those roles, I've always read them as one cannot be uniquely set apart from the other. But I think in different seasons, they're inverse. That we are David and we are Jonathan, we are Moses and we are Aaron. And I don't know why recently that's just been really in my head. Like I've always read it as one or the other, not an influx of both. And I think that's been a really interesting wrinkle for me when thinking about biblical friendship. Specifically in men and brotherhood, especially in our 30s, because we're all going through just different, unique, like actually real life things that we need to like be in those positions.
Yeah.
So, and there is scripture. I'm not going to read it all. But I was reading it this morning, Matthew 22:39, Proverbs 17:17, 2 Samuel 9, and 2 Kings 2:2-3. Those are all different verses that talk about the things I just mentioned. And then lastly, just Jesus and us. I think that's the greatest analogy. Or not analogy, greatest biblical
reality.
Yeah, reality, biblical blueprint for what friendship is. If you can't look at Jesus's life and his instructions and, what he sent his spirit in us and to enable us through and see that as your template for friendship, I don't know what else will.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say like Jesus and John, like that's a perfect relationship. Example.
The Lord's beloved.
Yeah.
Don't get Abby started.
It's one that I don't hear mentioned a lot. Is Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego.
Bros.
Sorry,
that
bro.
was one of the ones I was going.
Yeah.
And Daniel.
Nebuchadnezzar and grass.
He loved that grass.
Yeah, he did. But I feel like that's like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego is like a perfect example of like friendship, enduring like hard times, and that ridicule that you have. The other one though was that did a little studying on was Job and the three friends.
Yeah.
That's one that you don't like always
Well, who
think
was
about.
it?
Job and his three friends.
Dang,
Oh.
JP, if you don't stop.
And he didn't even put notes in, so this is just off the cuff.
Yeah.
Well, and his three friends are like, that's like the realist example of friends because they weren't always the best.
Well, it's good
that's what
intentions,
makes it-
but
yeah.
it's a friendship though,
Yeah.
based like these interactions based on good intentions most of the time. And as you see the friendship dissolve, it's obvious.
Yeah.
And then there was one more. Let's see if I can steal one of Zach's. No, that's it.
All right, now you better get to it before Garrett all of a sudden starts chiming in.
I was going to say Daniel
haven't you heard of
and-
Elijah?
Daniel and his three friends, because Daniel's like, I'll eat only vegetables. And then the next verse it says, like the plurality changes from singular to plural, where like his friends
People
are like,
followed him.
you know what? Like
Yeah.
we're gonna do it with you. And I think you've taught the youth on that before. And then I was also gonna bring up Job, which before you specified men, I like to jump to Ruth and Naomi.
Yeah,
That's my favorite.
Priscilla and Aquila. That's a husband and wife I just learned last year.
Oh,
Those are two women.
Akia or Aquila, however you want to say it, I guess.
Should have bought a Honda, but instead I bought a Kia. Praise the Lord.
Yep. Amen. But I do like the Ruth and Naomi of like your people are my people.
Mm-hmm. Your land is my
I also
land.
think the Ruth and Naomi story gives some pretty keen insight into having a friend who is not a person of the Lord or not a person of God, because Naomi was a
POL.
Moabite,
well,
so not part of God's people.
Yeah. And since you haven't hit on it, I'm going to go ahead and say it. Paul.
Paul and Timothy.
Well, no, Paul and all his friends that he writes to all the time.
constantly calls people out.
He does.
Dude knew how to keep a long
people
distance
think
relationship.
that Paul, he always mentioned the thorn in his flesh.
Yeah.
Is arrogance.
It was always people.
It bleeds into his writings.
What?
I think Paul struggled with pride.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I think that was the thorn in his fresh.
Sure. I mean, he listed all the qualities of why he should. He's like, look at all the things I have, but they're crap now.
Yeah.
But there is one thing I thought was interesting.
He was a humble brag king.
Since JP brought up Job, and that is at the very end, Job 42, God expresses his displeasure with Job's friends, not because they were doing
malicious.
The reason he's angry is they were giving him they were portraying God incorrectly. Not that they were being bad friends.
Yeah.
In fact, they were probably doing the right thing by they never left his side, they never abandoned him, they were just giving bad advice. But right before God restores all of Job's fortunes, it says the Lord restored the fortunes of Job after he prayed for his friends.
After Job prayed for his friends? Yeah.
They said, go make amends with Job. And then Job, it reads like Job's restoration was dependent on this
reconciliation,
forgiveness and reconciliation to his friends, which I actually didn't catch the first time when I read it. Was the verses, the Lord restored the fortunes of Job when he prayed for his friends, and the Lord increased all that Job had twofold. And
Good.
so, like, that's convicting to me, because how often do like a friend say something cross to me or make me mad or do something like that, and I'm really holding the keys to my my own blessing when all it takes is for me to get over myself and pray for my friends. It's that easy.
I pray for you all every day, not by name. I pray for you by last name. I thank the Lord for all my friends. And I pray for Brother
Hunt.
The Hunts, the Griffins, the Paytons, and their families. And I pray that the Lord bless them and provide for them as needed. But I don't get specific. I don't pray for like JP, Caitlin, June.
There's
you get a blanket family blessing prayer every day.
There's another set of scriptures that I really enjoy.
While you look that up, can I jump back in?
Oh yeah. I didn't.
Also, there's a bunch of proverbs about being friends, like Proverbs 18:24 is like to have a friend is to be friendly. Like it's dependent on
what you give.
Yeah, like if you want to have friends, you have to put in the effort and the work to be a friend.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then everybody likes to equate it to Jesus, which is not a bad thing. But the proverb of like, family is one thing, but there are friends that stick closer than a brother.
Mhm.
And that's exactly what you said. What you were talking about wasn't about Jesus at all. It was like, I have friends that are closer than my family. And it's that old saying of, you don't get to choose your family, but you get to choose your friends.
That one verse I didn't mention, well, I said it, but like Proverbs 17:17, I don't know the exact, I think I'm word for wording it. I think it's like, a friend loves at all times, or a friend is love, or something like that. It's Proverbs 17:17, I don't know, but something like a friend loves at all times, I think is what it is.
17:17 says, a friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for adversity.
Oh, well, so yeah, great. Double. I mean, so I missed the second part, but that's exactly
and
right.
Then there's I think it's right around 17 or 18 of like, pity the man who doesn't have someone to pick him up.
I pity the fool.
Yeah. It's like, if one falls, the other can pick him up. And a 3 braided cord, which again, everyone jumps to Jesus, but I think it can be taken, at face value there as well, of like a group of friends cannot easily be, untwisted.
Yep. And as iron sharpens iron, so is the days of our lives.
Yep.
I think that's been that twisted with something else.
All
right, go
sand in the hourglass.
Yeah. No.
I'm out of scripture off the top of my head.
Well, I mean, it kind of goes into our next theme too.
Do it.
About being unequally yoked in friendship, and talk about have we ever lost close friends and stuff like that.
I got something else to add in segment 3.
Okay, well, go ahead.
If you're jumping all the way to segment 4.
No, that's fine.
It is what sets apart biblical friendship from secular ideas of friendship, and is there a difference between Christian and non-Christian friendship? I'm going with a hot take here, and no, not really. I was
gonna somewhat agree with that.
we don't have to belabor it. I just really thought about this long and hard today.
Yeah.
And I have a couple friends who would probably say that they're Christians. I'm not going to single anybody out specifically. Yeah. But do I interact with them any different than I do with any of you guys? No. I talk about Jesus the exact same amount, but I'm not witnessing to them, if that makes sense. That's just, I think that's a weird thing to do to your friends. If that they know you, you're in their life day in, day out. They understand you. Your life should be that living witness. However, you bring up Jesus where you can when appropriate. I know people say, it's always appropriate to bring up Jesus. But you know what I mean? Like if they're going through something, you may float a scripture like, hey, I was going through this, this is what I did, right? To some scripture, I think. But in terms of like, how is it different? I don't think it should be different, because you look at Jesus didn't treat anybody. I mean, he would, he could correct them, but you correct regular friendships too when needed. Jesus didn't treat anybody different. It's kind of like his whole shtick. Yeah. Everybody was.
He lived in a way that let anyone around them know if they were in need, or if they did need comfort, like they knew that he was there.
Now get into unequally yoked.
Yeah.
Well, totally. We can double down that a little more intricacies, but on a surface level, is there a difference? Is there anything that sets apart biblical? I think a biblical friendship can potentially be a deeper, more enriching friendship, but is that always the case? No, I wouldn't say so.
Lots of Christian people that have been really bad friends. And so like to say that having Jesus makes it deeper just by default. I don't think that's the case.
No,
at least in experience, that's not the case.
Maybe it should in a perfect world, but we don't live in a perfect world.
We would think that it would make it like the deeper you got with friendships, Christ has to be that separating point to where my mindset, my goals, my dialogue in things is different as the relationship got deeper, but you don't necessarily see that as much. And I think when you said Jesus is like our example there, he does all the things that we talked about earlier. He's authentic and he allows people to be vulnerable, and he brings them in and not berate them and talk down to them, but allows them to see the truth in a way to change their lives. And the friendship to God was a friendship to bring them unto repentance and to show them the gospel, not to just allow them to continue to sit in the sin that they were in.
Well, that's the I think that's the beautiful thing of, people look at it. Well, he still has disciples that he went back to each day. He didn't take, the woman at the well home with him, or the woman who was caught in the act of adultery into his core necessarily. But, he did call the tax collector. He did call, his disciples weren't.
He had thousands.
Well, yeah, but I'm talking his core 12 weren't exactly role models at first either.
Yeah.
And you got to imagine that just because, Matthew, we'll just use an example because that's where I'm going. He came to Jesus that one day and he was just flipped a switch. He's better. He never had a temptation to be a greedy, self-serving person again. I mean, look at Judas. He didn't change.
They all had their motivations.
Yes,
even
they all had their motivations.
The Last Supper,
I mean, or like Peter, up until his death, they thought he was going to be a violent takeover and overthrow the government. And Judas betrayed him. He never changed really. So Jesus, even his core 12, not all of them. I mean, they all panned out except for Judas, but not all of them were technically equally yoked. I mean, you can't be equally yoked with Jesus. I'm not equating that, but you know what I mean. I've heard that argument before, like, oh well, he still chose his 12 and they were different. Like, were they really different?
People throw around that term equally or unequally yoked as if like
that's a 1990s purity culture movement.
It definitely is, and they throw it around as if like.
But you should go back and listen to our purity culture episode.
The friendship can I don't think we touched on that one though. No. The friendships can only succeed if agreement is like 100% across the board.
That's never any case in any relationship.
Number one, it's impossible.
Yeah.
Number two, I think Jesus' example undoes that because he's like, there's a reason the friend of sinners was like a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he gets called out. He's like, why are you hanging out with these people?
Yeah.
And if that's not in the way we're saying unequally yoked, in that purity culture sense, that's what that is.
Yeah.
And of course you can't take that unequally yoked. That's not a Bible term. Or I mean, I guess
it is.
It is, but kind of what we've co-opted it.
Yes,
we've
perverted it.
Yes.
Well,
to something else.
It's taken out of context a lot.
Shocker. Everything people quote the most is taken out of context.
It's the same thing with like in Matthew 11 when Jesus says that my yoke is easy, my burden is light. Pastor John taught about it being the belief system and the value system. And so I'm not yoked to someone who has a belief system and follow and I have scripture for this that we can get into.
I'm glad that's I thought you were reading I thought this was like Atlanta Braves spreadsheets or something from over here. Like, are you really looking at RBIs over there?
No, they did win though.
Is that a real baseball term?
Yes. Yeah, it's a run batted in.
What's whip?
Oh, I was going to say runner on base.
What's whip?
That would be ROB.
Oh, Rob.
Runner on base. Well, they would call it left on base, LOB. Runners left on base.
Rob and lob, baby.
Yeah.
All right, sorry.
Anyways, the unequally yoked, or Jesus's yoke that he talks about, is the belief system. Take on my belief system and learn under my teaching. And the same thing is, I'm not going to be yoked unequally to someone whose belief system is not that of Jesus. So,
or even
that was a really shocking quiet.
Or even like, I'm not going to put a yoke of friendship on JP that's more stringent than what Jesus has for me.
Yeah,
I would be putting my burden, or my yoke would be heavier on JP than Jesus would be.
Like an expectation.
Yeah. And at that point I'm
it's not a friendship at that point.
I'm leaving Jesus's example.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a level of like,
but where's the line at though with friendships and with people? Like, where do you draw that line? How long am I going to be a friend until I dust the feet off?
This is good. Now we can move into segment 4. You were just a little premature in your.
You could just walk right into it. You don't have to.
No, I like this. Because I feel like it's a good circle back. Yeah. I brought it back to segment 3.
Can I co-op it and be like,
all right, we're going back to segment 3 again.
Do what?
Can I just take the easy way out and be like, only you and Jesus know, Garrett? For what you,
Lord knows.
For what you determine, only you know. I don't know if it's a set rule.
Yeah.
Okay. segment 4 talks about, have you ever lost a close friend? What happened? And what kinds of conflict have you seen or experienced in your friendship? How have you learned to reconcile? When to walk away? What does it mean to be unequally yoked? Is it ever godly to let a friendship go? You are primed and ready for segment 4. Seems like you've been itching
up.
You are you are teed up, ready to go. You've taken 2 V's and let's go. Let's see what you got.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I don't know
That's what I thought.
Right.
I don't know which part to start at because I think I'll go with, is it godly to let a friendship go? I think yes, absolutely it is.
Absolutely.
I've had to let go of friendships that I came into this season of life that I'm in right now
without being too descriptive.
Without being
Give
too
me
descriptive.
context.
Where sometimes people they're not who they say they are to your face after you're with someone. And this is what I sometimes about church is people love bomb people in church.
Church friendships sometimes are the
and
worst
they're
friendships.
very hard to discern if they're authentic or not. And then eventually, as Jesus tells us, that the fruit tells the tale, and the fruit will always let you know if it's authentic or not. So I
look no further than Mountain Dew in Peru.
Yeah. But I have lost friendships and had to let go of some friendships, that I now love them from a distance and, obviously don't want anything bad to happen
But
to
are
them.
these all in the context of church though?
These are, yes.
Okay.
And, I have lost, if I ever lost a close friend, I lost one of my best friends to OD.
Now, see, I didn't want to correct it because I saw your notes. I was like, I meant like, have you ever mourned a friendship? Not literally someone died.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a level to that though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It is different, but I would say the friendship, not mourning the friendship like, oh, I'm so sad this is over, but almost being disappointed that we were deceived with this friendship.
So is it just, I guess you don't want to go too, I look back at some friendships I've lost. I'm saying air quotes lost. I'm looking back to like, was it really that this person was that bad, or we just really didn't see eye to eye and probably could have salvaged a friendship? I think there's different seasons in life. I mean, Garrett, you and I specifically at Walgreens, I was coming off of my spiritual high and getting too far into the world.
Mm-hmm.
And when you came into my life and you were going on your spiritual journey up the mountain when I was coming down off mine, we were probably unequally yoked, if you want to be, in context here.
But
however, we had a foundation. Well, there was a boundary, but we also had a foundation.
Mm-hmm.
And even though I went over the boundary, we know this. I went over your boundaries. I'm good about that.
There was a boundary in my mind and stuff like, you would step over the boundary and I would allow only you.
I remember in Jackass 2, you stepped over the line. You stepped over the line.
I can't remember it.
Johnny Knoxville's just as the old man. He's.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But there was times where you would step over that line, but I would have to make sure that I would voice that opinion to you when you did step over those lines.
Bro, that's crazy. So you're saying to me when I knew I got out of pocket. So that's what I'm saying. Like where, I think trying to say how to say this.
What are you trying to?
I think there's different levels of friendship. I think I've never lost a brotherhood friendship. There are people I mentioned on Daniel's podcast, David Brandon, one of my all-time closest friends, but we go through seasons of life where we don't, I'm talking, let alone send a text message thinking of you.
I'm just going to say, that is a you thing. That is a genetic, like DNA, like you thing. Because there are people in my own life.
Yeah.
I would say high school, like graduate, like just fresh grad. I wouldn't even know what to talk to them about now. Like I mean it when I say
that's the thing.
Single person.
We'll go. It's not like a lifetime. We'll go just a couple years, but because that's how we've always been all through high school, college, now adulthood. We'll go like 2-3 years without saying a word to each other.
I have friends like that.
And then all of a sudden,
Alexa.
One of us will reach out to one another.
It's a DNA, like whatever. Yeah, how y'all are wired.
David could do the worst thing imaginable. I think I made a note. Like,
there's levels to this.
There's levels.
I mean, like sleeping with your wife or hurting your children or something like that. Obviously,
I'm quoting Kendrick Lamar. I'm sorry.
Oh,
obviously something different. But outside of something egregious like that a friend wouldn't do anyway, there's nothing really that either of us could do to the friendship to hurt the friendship. We just sometimes don't talk, and then all of a sudden we'll be best friends and hang out freaking probably too much.
Yeah.
That's how our relationship's always been. So I guess I've never had that moment, I guess, that you've had where I've had to let a friendship go, even though I've been on totally different spectrums of faith, and I felt hurt by people, but we've been able to reconcile it and move on. So I guess I'm just wondering, in your case, was it, and I'm not speaking, I'm asking, like with reflection, you don't have to answer it right now, like just going forward, was it really a friendship, or was it really like a close acquaintanceship or circumstantial friendships? I've had circumstantial friendships that they feel like friendships, look like friendships, but really are dependent on the circumstance, and or a seasonal friendship. And it's really hard to know until you're out of it. And then you're like, I didn't really lose a friend. I lost a acquaintance. I lost someone who was in my life for this season of time. And maybe that's just not a discernment thing, I guess, for lack of better words, but I've always been able to like see that this is, I'm just going to name a couple people here, and I don't mean it. If you view me as a friend, I'm sorry. I view you as a friend in a season. Like Derek Tarnowski, Michael Bergman, Aaron O'Brien. Like, I like all those dudes, and I could be friends with them, but we were friends in a season. You know what I mean? Like, do I have any ill will? Not at all. I like all of them. I genuinely
cheer them on.
I cheer them on, but it's, but do I think about them on a day-to-day basis? No, but they're good dudes. Like, Aaron will text me every once in a while, and I like Aaron, and we've been seasonal friends, but it's not like me and David. That's not a seasonal. That's a brotherhood. That's just a weird one. But like, he'll text me like, hey, you want to go see Under Oath? Sure. Let's go see Under Oath, and we'll be able to, just my personality, talk, hang out, but then neither one of us really feel the need to reach out to each other again, because unless a situation arises. That makes sense? Like a situational friendship.
Yeah.
You just have those, and that's okay. But if they all of a sudden like what point at 30 years old are they just be like, I don't want to be friends anymore?
So what do you,
Irish could buy that.
Here's what I think is hard about Christianity and friends is a lot of times you can't discern until it's out of that relationship. If it was a situationship, you know?
Yeah.
And then that I see a lot of church hurt happen from that. Is like, oh, I thought we were better friends. No, you were serving with them. You saw them on Sunday morning, and you served with them on Wednesdays, and you did coffee with them so like you do all these things with them, and then you remove yourself from that ministry, and then you see a lot of times things just keep going, and you feel kind of stuck and left.
JP knows all those guys I mentioned were pivotal in whatever ministries, and outside of you, you're the only friend I really pulled from that season of my life that I maintained out of that. Now, I knew Aaron since I was a little kid. He's a little different, but we've always just had a seasonal situational friendship. You're the only one that actually graduated to a real life blossomed, brotherhood friendship.
Congratulations.
Yeah. It was that slow dance.
1 in 10 chance.
It was that slow dance at New Year's Eve.
It was. We bonded. That was our brother bond.
That was the brother bond. And we were both skinny as a rail. That picture, we look like two sticks in flannel shirts. It's
That's relevant.
Wow. Yeah, very relevant.
Yeah. Relevant was around then.
So to really both of y'all's points, like my life has revolved around church. And a lot of times growing up, I've had a lot of friendships that, like, I remember being in like a ministry outside of a church, is like a collective thing. And some of those people that were in that, like I would say probably 10 years ago, I would have said like those are my longest friends, because literally my entire life just growing up together. And stuff changes, circumstances changes. Like, you're not able to do that anymore. You're not able to commit to those types of things. And it's like Gary was saying, it's like situational. Like, we did this ministry together. We were involved. We were spending more time together. And it's like, you take yourself out of that. You realize your whole identity, your whole relationship identity was based around this thing. And then to even more as you grow up, whenever, what I've struggled with in the past before coming to Faith Center was I viewed every relationship as, how does this affect my ministry? How does this affect my, whatever?
How does this affect Bron's legacy?
Yeah, Bron's legacy. And so it's like, immediately it's like, how am I presenting myself to better sell myself, or how can I get this influence? And it's just very quickly, it's just tiring.
It's
tiring to the point where I didn't want friendships after that. I didn't want anything.
Or you get to the point, like specifically, the ministry aspect of it. When we had whatever ministries, I think I've shared this story before. Yeah. We got so serious about it. And one of the guys that was on our team, we thought was into some sin. And he's
in some sin.
It's a sin.
He's a sinner.
We anointed his strings with oil and prayed over it.
What?
His guitar played worship too. Mm-hmm. We anointed his strings with rubbed oil all over it and anointed them and prayed over them. And after sound check, someone put something on my guitar strings.
Oh my god!
It was just olive oil. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know it was scented. It was scented. It had like a cinnamon smell.
They got that stuff straight from Jerusalem.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Straight out of Young Living.
Straight out of Zion.
Well, when I told my dad we did it, he goes, "What oil did you use?" I was like, "On the prayer room." He goes, "How much did you use?" All of it. It was in like this little gold container, like this big, like it's probably like frankincense and myrrh or something. I just rubbed all over this dude's.
The anointing oil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Costs like $30 a bottle on Amazon.
I had a deeper point to that, but I forgot.
Well, I was going to hit on before we had moved on that, like, getting older, like it's harder to, whenever you're in ministry, to approach friendships within church, because you can come into it with, again, expectations of, we go to the same church, we believe similar to the same things. So there's like an unspoken, like level playing field, and it's
almost
like
an unspoken truce.
Yeah,
like
that's the dumbest thing. If you have to mentally think about that in a friendship, you've already discovered it's a situation.
Yeah, and that's the point. Yeah. Like if I walk away from that, like it's not their fault, it's mine. I didn't do my like. There's been too many times, and then I've tried to connect with people in church, and I very quickly, I'm like, I can't not have to be on all the time to maintain a relationship. That doesn't mean it couldn't happen over time. There could be certain things, but there is, as you get older, just a bandwidth that you have. And some people's bandwidth is different. Mine is much smaller. I'm working on it, but it's harder to allow yourself to just be on all the time.
I have it in here.
Yeah.
And this kind of circles back to everything we've been talking about. Talking about seasons, situationships, but also real friendships. I think real friendships, what'll make or break, we talk about what have you reconciled? What have you struggled with? Because real friendships have their struggle. I think they're almost, in my experience with friendships, what issues we've had, what arguments we've had, whatever it may be. I really thought about this today. They always are rooted in insecurities, jealousy, temper, anger, selfishness, etc. Those kind of things.
I lost 2 friends for one of those.
Yeah, I mean that's seriously anything that I've ever struggled with anybody or they've struggled with me has stemmed from one of those things. Now you could say that.
Say them again.
Insecurity, jealousy, anger, selfishness.
From yourself dealing with that, or
both vice versa. Both. Yeah. Like what I felt and what others have felt. But the good thing is, all of mine have been able to, over time at least, discuss that, and someone come back, whether it's myself or somebody say, "I'm sorry for this. I was going through this at the time. I didn't realize it, and I projected that onto you."
Yeah.
Shout out Jenny Disher teaching me the word projected.
We're working.
Well, in terms of therapy, I can look back at these words specifically, but that's the reason I lost this, or we had a fight here, or we reconciled here, how we did it.
That's interesting, because for me, it would be things like vulnerability or conflict. I can think of 2 friendships that you would probably remember that.
Gotta be careful. I'll just straight up name and claim.
Stuff would just come up for them personally, and I just wouldn't be there emotionally to like help walk through, or they would have an issue with me, or have an issue with something that was said, or something that I would otherwise deem not worth it. And, just like, all right, I'm good. You're good over there. I'm good over here. See you next time. And so those are more relevant things. the insecurity thing as well is huge because, it's always.
Can I go back on something
Segment 3.
with friends?
Go away.
Going to segment 3.
I want to touch on the equally and unequally yoked thing one more time.
Here we go.
Okay.
No,
All right, fine, sure.
And it's important to me.
Garrett's line is kicking in. He drank at 8:30.
Dude, he's trying to plow a field over here.
Yeah.
And he needs.
Because I could sense the conversation is about to go into another level, and I want to make sure I get this out here.
Yeah, it was going into segment 5.
Psalm 1, the very first psalm, and this is where I believe the difference between unequally and equally yoked lies. Oh, sorry, am I yelling? The scripture says this is the ESV version. I've been reading the
scripture
ESV.
says this is the ESV version.
The blue letter.
BLB.
All the bros hate ESV.
All right. So blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the wicked. So I think that is the biggest word there between an unequally and equally yoked person. I was reading my notes and I noticed how you changed my notes. How
What did I put in there?
You can't be friends.
Do you like that? It was very
I
subtle.
was looking at this and I was like, you can't be friends, but this is
Something
where,
as simple as saying
Burgundy?
it said can. I just changed it to can't.
yeah.
No, I called him today.
It's like Ron Burgundy reading off
I called
the
JP today,
teleprompter.
Zach, so tickled. I was like, do you think Garrett's one of those guys who's like Ron Burgundy, just reads anything that's in the notes? He goes, I don't know. I was like, well, good, because I made some obvious changes and some very subtle changes in his notes. I hope he just reads them.
I've been sitting here waiting to say this. And so you can be friends with someone and not yoked to them.
Yeah.
But what I think the biggest point here for Psalm 1 is that word counsel, which means advice. You don't take their advice. And I'm not talking about like, if you're talking to your buddy and he's like, hey, just stop like beating your wife. Like that's sound advice. Like someone who's not saved can tell you that's not a good thing to do,
Right.
you know? But when it comes to like my life with Christ, their counsel, even though they might be good in some areas, their counsel overall isn't going to be something that I walk in. And it says specifically here, blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the wicked. You know, I'm not yoked to someone who's wicked in my life and listening to their advice, because there's deception in that. Because if I sit there and listen to their advice, then I'm going to start standing in the way of the sinner. And then after I stand in the way of the sinner for a while, because I begin to heed their advice, then I'm going to be sitting in their seat, and then I lose my blessing. And so there has to be a line eventually with the equally and unequally yoked people that, you know, is there counsel for my life wicked or not, you know, even if it might sound good to the world. And so I just wanted to throw that out there, is that the biggest thing for me between equally and unequally yoked is that word counsel. You can be friends with them, but they're not going to be my voice of reason in my life.
It's so hard for me with this because I think the two can still coexist to a degree. I look back at, like, let's just say, I mean, you know, Ethan, CJ, Ledford, that group of guys, which, I mean, Ledford's in church and doing great by all accounts now. But like all those guys, I have like those were true friendships, but like high school, college, like, and then, you know, you grow up. We talked about this on the top of the pod. You know, everybody grows up. I went on the faith journey. Some of them took a little bit longer to grow up. Now they're just on doesn't seem like a faith journey, except for maybe Austin Ledford, but like more of just I'm maturing, growing up, leaving partying behind kind of thing. But like if we all got together, I feel like it would be one of those things where we'd all be tempted just to get like trash for old time's sake, or all the things we talk about is just like things from the past, which is fine. Briefly, I'm a nostalgic as anybody else, but like those kind of friendships I probably wouldn't seek out unless it was just like God ordained. But I still think I have some other friendships that are genuine friendships that are not, I would say, are people who have really much of a walk with Christ at all, if any. But I don't feel unequally yoked with them. I look at it as like, did anybody watch Home Improvement back in the day?
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, you think of Tim Allen, what was his best friend's name?
The co-host?
Yeah. But you know who I'm talking about. But arguably, who was his other friend that's highlighted
Dude
in the
on
show?
fence.
The dude on the fence.
Wilson. His name was Wilson. Every episode, every night, the show would end with them talking and talking about something deep every night. But they were never on the same side of the fence, but we're genuine friends on that side. I think you can have that kind of relationship. Yes, you're not like when you think of yoke, I think of things that are together in one. These guys were set apart by a fence, but they were still had a really close, genuine friendship. Even though you never.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, you're still taking this to Christ.
Correct.
Like you're still weighing.
I think there are ways to do it, but I do think circle back on what's been said twice. There are levels to it.
Because again, Job had. Yeah, Job's friends had all.
Yes, and you could argue that they were not equally yoked. I think you can, and I think it's a slippery slope. And I think you're when I got saved, I had to let go of all those friendships, including some of the guys I just mentioned. And it was a source of contention. Like, hey, man, you're too good for us now, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, I genuinely love you and care about you because at the time I did. But if I go hang out with you now, I'm going to fall right back into the way of life I did. But I think as you grow and mature, I think you can have a bandwidth to be unequally yoked in friendship. Marriage is totally different because that's day in, day out activity that you can drag one another down, I think, more easily.
It's your life, yeah.
But friendships, at the end of the day, if you're unequally yoked long enough and it's just you're starting to feel like it's bad, you can cut it off. But I guess it's easier to do that than a marriage. But I think you can be. I just think you should do it with caution, especially if you're...
Well, sparingly too.
Yes. Like, I don't want to hang out with that person every night.
From my addiction that I can talk to, that I see when we go to Leo's school, I'll see them, but I'm not gonna stand with them. Well, see, I think we're just thinking of two different levels of friendship because I would still stand with them, talk to them, but that's the kind of friendship I still have with them. Like I'm not gonna, like you're saying, if we got all together, if me and these friends all got together in one room together, like that would be a recipe for disaster.
Right. And see, I'm not talking about those guys.
Okay.
You know what? Just agree to disagree, but agree.
I mean,
am I not making sense?
I just think you would take it a different approach than.
Well, because it's not like I would hang out with those people because I don't have a friendship with them anymore. It's people who aren't like in a party in life.
It's those people.
Those people.
It's those guys.
Those people. Hard P. It's just people who are responsible don't struggle with partying and stuff like that. But I would say are not living a faithful lifestyle to Christ, but are otherwise fine people. So when I think of unequally yoked, I'm just specifically talking about spiritually.
I think intimacy is like key to the equation too, because
baby.
Because a lot of those relationships that you've had, like you're connected by. So like for me personally, I didn't party a lot growing up. So I didn't have that connection of just like, oh, we could just whatever. I would just have more intense relationships, just like on a more personal level, like just kind of know how your life is and just more kind of enmeshed in that way than let's just get blacked out and have whatever. I think that's why it's easier to say I can cut those people out because you've already cut that element out of your relationship.
Yeah.
It's a little bit easier to just kind of draw that line, and it can be a little bit more gray whenever the elements of your relationship are more day to day, like friendly, like passing. Like, how do you draw a line whenever those things are not as intense as, say, go and throw a rager and then go crazy?
Yeah. I don't want to do ragers anymore anyway. I'm not built for it. But hey, what's it called when you're on the golf course and you're about to put the golf ball
tee off?
Great, because I got this one set up. Talking about losing friends and unequally yoked. Obviously, if you're losing friends and you grow up, you have to make new ones, or you're just going to be a loner loser, like we talked about at the very beginning opening. How do you guys in 32, 33 years old? Do y'all have the bandwidth? Do y'all have space in your mind, your heart, your families, your friendships for new friendships?
This is new.
Yeah.
So I mean,
well, you lead with it. You lead with it.
We're a couple years in now, and I know we have a different dynamic because I serve under you and stuff at church. But
freaking church ruins everything.
But I mean, I don't serve with you, and yet
you can serve under me anytime you want.
This is a new,
good Lord,
blossoming friendship.
And then you use blossom right underneath it.
As far as making new friends, this is one of the stories I was going to tell. I have a more recent one. But when Alexa and I got married, we got married in 2013. You and Caitlin had like not been dating very long.
Yeah, probably like first month.
Yeah. And she brings...
And distill it from the hard.
Yeah. But we've been around.
She brings JP to our wedding, and I had talked to JP like maybe twice. And
lies. We hung out more than that.
Not much.
Jealous sex thing.
Not
Yes.
much. But it was like at our wedding or our rehearsal or something. And I told Alexa, like, to her face, I was like, hey, I want you to know, like,
I want you to know.
I said, I want you to know that JP and I are going to be friends. And she was like, what? I was like, I'm letting you know that I'm going to make JP my friend. And so you and
very similar.
And Caitlin,
Yeah.
I said, if they stay together, you and Caitlin are going to have to deal with it because like I'm going to be his friend. She was like, okay. And so like, you know, it's going to sound funny, but like I was super intentional.
You pursued a friendship.
Yeah, I pursued a friendship. It's the same way when we moved to college, we joined the on-campus group Chi Alpha, and there was a couple guys down there, and it was our first night there, Alexa and I's first night there, and I was like, "Hey, do you want to go talk to them?" She was like, "No, not really. I want to sit right here." And I was like, "Well, I'm gonna go talk to them because we need friends. We're gonna be their friend."
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, "Okay," and I went down there. And I came back to her and I was like, hey, we're hanging out with them in 2 days from now. And so like I have that capacity to be like, I see someone that, you know, I want to, you know, put time into.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not shy to do that. Alexa's friend making is a little bit more organic.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, Caitlin's her oldest friend for the most part. And they've had some ups and some tumultuous
Any friendship should
times.
like should probably have that.
And you know, but as far as making new friends, I don't intend on replacing anyone because I don't think that's the goal, but I'm always up for like if the Lord, if you know, I see God working in a certain person and I'm like, okay, I'm drawn to that. Then yeah, sure.
I always have a bandwidth for new friends. I think your cap should. Anybody watch Pooh Bear back in the day?
Yeah.
You had Tigger, Piglet, Gopher, Rabbit, Kangaroo. Actually, I have more. Never mind. Maybe the 12 disciples is a better analogy. Jesus had 12. Maybe your bandwidth's at 12. But no, I always have a bandwidth for genuine friendships. I mean, I meet a lot of people. I mean, there's some, you know, I'm in church right now in life group. I'm getting to know some people. But I mean, right now it's all situational friendship. Like it feels friendly, feels like I could be friends with people, but like it's too early to tell. But like, you know, Zach would be my newest person. I feel like I led into a friendship circle on my end. You know what I mean? But my door's pretty open. I'm just picky about who I let into it because, like I said, I'm kind of one person. Once I let you in my circle, I kind of mate with you for life. Like you're stuck with me. You're.
It's not consensual.
Yeah, friendly.
We have a term for that.
I feel violated.
platonic mating.
Okay.
You know, you and Kyle Hanner are probably the two guys you would love. Kyle, you would eat Kyle.
You
up.
resemble.
And then
What? Did you hear that, Garrett? You said Zach and Kyle resemble each other.
Bro, you FaceTimed the man.
The first time we ever hung out, you FaceTimed that man and held your phone up beside my face. You're like, look, they're both Asian.
Do not act like you don't remember this.
I genuinely don't remember.
Oh my
this.
gosh. Call Kyle right now.
The first time we ever hung out in public.
That's crazy.
No,
FaceTimes
please
him.
don't call.
And then
Also, look at that.
Please don't.
top
I'm
one.
tired.
Did you see that? It won't go away at the top. Look at that date.
Huh.
I know. I think it's my death day. Look at that. I called Kyle about this a week ago. I was like, for some reason, my top missed call is from you of December 3rd of 2025, and it won't go away.
That's creepy.
Where?
This is the omen.
On the flip side, Alexa has
That's great.
Go ahead.
It's like
We'll never get
On
through
the
it.
flip side, Alexa came home from work a few months ago, and she's like, "Hey, I kind of like reconnected with this guy that I went to high school with, and I work with him, and he and his wife are super cool." And she said, "You two," talking about me and him, she's like, "You two are going to hit it off. Like I can see it." And so I met him for the first time. He plays in one of the bands that we go see, and I was like, "Hey, I'm Zach." He was like, "What's up?" And it's like we'd known each other for literally just meeting this man.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, we're
he definitely did.
100% did.
My bandwidth is about
FaceTime
1%
messages?
now. My bandwidth is about 1% now. My Wi-Fi is crashing over here.
How? You were caffeinated up.
It's the crash after.
Not.
Anyway, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
But I mean, even my wife has taken to like embracing the fact that I have capacity for making new friends.
Yeah.
Garrett.
Yeah, I like how you said the term bandwidth, because I do have whoever said
that was
I said first.
Oh, no,
sure
it was in my
JP.
original note.
But I found myself spread out
Yeah, you
with
did.
a lot of different friendships that were like coming to fruition and everything, and it was almost not like a selection process, but it was like I got
Bandwidth in the original notes.
I got to make sure that because what was happening is we were trying to figure out how to hang out so much, but I put here, you just can't be friends with everyone and lead your family and lead the ministry that you're in, lead yourself, because all of those categories take time. And the more time that you're trying, and this is for me personally, Leslie and I, we were trying to spend so much time finding new friendships that we felt like our home life was chaotic in a sense, not like crazy, like it was burning down, but it was just like, there's no time for us to connect. We're trying to connect with different people, plug our schedules full of stuff. But what we've done now is narrow our bandwidth down over the past year and a half. And we've seen when we've narrowed it down and we've led our home, we've led each other. Now we're seeing friendships come into fruition. And it did take some time and consistency to see this side of it. I remember hanging out with Travis and Amy for the first time, and it's weird hanging out with people at first. You're like,
you should have broke that friendship off as soon as the puppets came and went. That's like a friendship terminator.
What do you talk about? What do we talk about here? What do we not talk about? And then it was like, after hanging out a few times, now it's like, oh, okay, like this is our friendship.
I think, all of these bullet points, do you have space for new friendships? How do you form meaningful friendships in the season of life? How do you manage friendships in the church and leadership roles? I think the reason I have an extended bandwidth, specifically with like, when I say my circle of friends, is the friendships that I've tried to ram down as like a marital friendship that I have to bring Abby in on, or like when I choose friendships, I'm not choosing friendships on the basis of, can this be a friendship that Abby can be in on? Can this be a friendship that I can be close to Caitlin? I don't look at that. That crosses my mind 0% of the time, because I, as a grown married male, will never hang out with anybody's wife. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not looking to be friends with them.
Yeah,
and
no
I
day
think,
trips or
So when I'm choosing friendships, for lack of a better word, I could care less about I know you want your wives to all hang out and be friends, but like, I do not care about that. At the end of the day, I can be friends with a bro without being friends with their wife. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I find myself having more friendships like that. I mean, I'm friends with some of my friends' wives, but I find myself being more friends with their husband.
Yeah, I have a
obviously.
heart-
But you don't
Truly?
approach friendships like I need to be friends with this person so that my
Honestly,
wife can be connected with their
right.
wife
Life
type of
gets
thing.
too busy
Yeah.
and complicated that
Yeah.
way. Because then I feel like I have this genuine friendship, but then I have to manage my
Yeah.
wife's friendship. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not trying to take that out of her hands. Like, it's just like, I feel like I have to babysit that too and make sure they're all getting along. Like, that's why my bandwidth begins and ends with my friends. Like,
Mhm.
could care less. Like, there's been some friends I've had, still currently have that, and now it's gonna be a mystery who Abby does not like, but knows that they're fine for me. She just doesn't want to hang around them, be around them necessarily.
There's a
Is it
reason
me?
she's never in here.
Yeah. Well, that's just because
It's because she's eating a peanut butter and jelly and a glass of milk right now.
that he saw that sandwich. How about that? It was a
Yeah.
good peanut butter jelly
It was
ratio.
good.
Y'all ever need
Yeah.
me to?
So, do y'all take the peanut butter and jelly and stir it up in the bowl?
Oh, you blasphemous.
That's what I said. That's the nuts.
That's
Stuff.
Who
crazy.
buys that?
It's
Phoenix
because I used to
bottle?
do meth.
Yeah, I guess.
Did
Everything's all kind of jumbled up
That's
up
a
This is a
there.
good
bigger meal if
question.
I've ever heard one.
Real quick side bar here. Do you use a spoon or a butter knife?
Butter knife.
I used to.
I feel like spoon, you're
Way
getting better
easier.
spread. Yeah.
Much better spread.
Yeah.
You
Wider
you
surface.
dollop it out, then use the back half of the
I can
spoon.
Well, I buy the squeeze jelly.
Oh, see, that's a problem.
Garrett's at the edge of
That's
his
a
seat.
problem.
He is like
Yeah, Garrett's,
1 foot out
He's
the door.
ready to go.
Yeah.
Garrett's like, you know what? We got to
He's
talk about.
literally me.
He's
You know what
"We're
happened?
not
We're
friends
circling back to
anymore.
the
I gotta
beginning.
get
He
outta
heard me
here."
talking about wives. He's ready to talk about Leslie right now, how much he loves her and how they're best friends.
Oh, let me clear off the table. You can stand on it.
Just
Want me
squat.
I
Just
can.
squat. Remember our Spider-Man squat in unison?
Yeah.
Just
That's
get
good.
right there and do
I
it.
was thinking about your squat for this video.
Oh, yeah, that was a good one too.
Or was it?
My butt.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, no, I think that's why my bandwidth is different because I literally just focus on, because that shouldn't be something that concerns Abby. I'm not going to be friends with people who are going to be a bad
Mhm.
influence at this point in my life. You know what I mean? I have no time for that.
Well,
And
you said you were.
no, they just may not have a good Christ relationship, but they're not going to lead me astray like
No.
drugs, alcohol, sex, that kind of stuff. They're all
I
responsible.
do
married
get your point on
Yes.
that too, by the way.
You know, so my bandwidth is always open because if there's someone in my life, if I have, yeah, no. If there's people who can edify my life, take Garrett's word, he's used 46 times tonight. If there's people who can,
Oh, have I?
yeah, you said edify a lot.
Chat.
Hey, Grok.
What if
At
we
Grok.
live stream just one time?
Oh gosh.
That would be insane. I'd hate it and love it at the same time.
Yeah. Anyway, if there are people in my life who can bring more value to my life, or I feel like I can just immediately be myself with them, I don't care if I have 50 friends. Want that person in my life.
Mhm.
You know, there's different people that want to do different things. You know, I have certain people I text if I want to go do this thing. I have certain people text if I want to go do this thing. You know, different friendships, different personalities. I don't think there's a limit for me to that as long as they go back to the beginning. If I can trust them, be myself around them, they're joyful people. And obviously, if they love Jesus, that's a bonus. But if they don't, that's okay too. I hope that they see my life and hopefully blend into my other friendships. You know, like I look at JP and Kyle, like y'all kind of have like
wasn't saved
or
before.
Dawson, like y'all have a pseudo kind of friendship that you met through me.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just I love that you can meet other people through. You know, I met Zach through you guys, and like it's fun. You know, that part of it. So I'm always open to that, and I don't think there's a cutoff for me. No.
My bandwidth is very small.
Mhm.
So, I mean, it's just
Itsy bitsy teeny weeny yellow.
I mean, it's not that I
polka
don't.
dot
It's not
bikini.
that I don't want to make new friends, but it's like
You're content.
JP
yeah,
is kind of like
Yeah.
I'm content.
JP's kind of like Raymond from Rain Man. You really have to basically just kidnap him and take him
You
with
do,
you
yeah,
if you want
for
to.
real.
And he's just sitting over going, "Who's on first base? Who's on first base?" Yeah.
And to Zach's story is very true. I was probably way too mean to Zach at some points. Just like, oh, you gonna try?
You think you can? You will never get this.
I almost quoted Borat because both of you guys said something very self-serving early on in the episode, and I was like, "I need to get you each a chair so you can go king of the castle, king of the castle." I have a chair. And one day, my cousin Bilo, he broke through the cage and he got this.
Mhm.
No, but most times whenever I pursue a friendship,
Sounds
if
like
it's-
you don't pursue friendship.
I don't. That's the
Sounds
thing.
like you're hard to get. You're like Julia Roberts.
In the few cases, so
Pretty
I can't
woman.
remember if it was actually in there, but quick story about like making friends. There was a point where I was at a point where I did not have a lot of close friends at the time. It might have been a little bit before you. And there were a couple dudes that I was working with at the time that I knew from like playing ball with. And so it was like very much just casual friends. And there was another dude that they were friends with. And for whatever reason,
all this stuff that sounds so gay.
It does, dude. Guys talking about friendship is why nobody talks about it.
I can't wait to see the comments on this.
Anyways, like I said,
it smells like bears in there.
Like I said, I'm not like I don't connect in like doing crazy stuff or whatever. Like Jonathan's made all of his friends.
So voice.
This dude had like either like a game or something, or whatever. And I tried to encourage him. So I sent something really encouraging. I felt like it was almost like an actual relationship where you put yourself out there and you got the sup type of just response. I was like, okay,
at 2 a.m.
This friendship ain't gonna work.
Yeah.
Oh no.
And I wish I could take that back.
Slipped.
It was cringe. Yeah, it's like
Here's a quick.
So what'd you get back?
Oh, I got
herpes.
Just like, thanks, man.
Thanks, man.
I sent like a paragraph like, dude, you're awesome. Whatever, you'd be great. It's gonna go great.
Oh no.
Yeah,
no.
dude.
Oh,
Dude.
yeah.
I have a more recent story of, if you don't mind me sharing, of JP.
JP's like, oh no.
I don't know what it is.
trying.
Blocking out.
JP trying to up his capacity. We went to listen to music the other night, and so it was JP and I, Alexa, Caitlin, and our friend Samuel.
Steven.
And so me and Caitlin and Samuel go away to do something. And so that leaves JP and Alexa at the table, who are neither like super like outgoing people.
We're kindred spirits.
Yeah. And so she said, we're both sitting there and it's quiet. And there's like
The band started.
There's like 100 people.
The band
around.
started.
Yeah. And she said, he tried to make small talk. And then he said, she said,
he's got to go home in his burn book. Alexa.
She said he tried to make small talk, and then after a minute, it just got quiet again. And so he stood up, said, "It's time to butt up," and put his earbuds in and walked away without saying anything.
We were sitting there. No, listen.
He left Alexa alone at the table.
That is not what happened. That is not what happened. We did talk. I wasn't trying to force anything. I was trying to force it. Why would I even force anything with Alexa? I've known her for years.
Exactly. She said
You're implying I was forcing. And then the music started. It's a very small space. It was very loud.
Time to butt up.
Butt up,
my
Alexa.
earbuds in.
And gets up and slams his chair on the ground.
I'm going to keep some on me
and I
forever and
walk away.
always. And when someone starts annoying me, it's going to time to butt up and just walk
I
away.
already do that.
Yeah.
They're called AirPods.
No, I want earplugs. Legit earplugs.
That's-
when Alexa texted me that,
Oh, man.
I showed Caitlin, and we were
This
both
is why
rolling.
this is why JP doesn't have his trust issues.
I know. This is why he hates me.
Vulnerability.
So
I'm the
What?
butt up.
It's time to butt up.
Last question about this, and we'll get to our closing segment here.
Oh, Lord.
What have your past and current friendships taught you about the kind of friend you
Nothing.
want to be?
Vulnerability is a lie.
Yeah, very obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Patience and adaptability. That's it. That's all for me.
Yeah.
Being patient, letting people grow, let people go on their own journey, but being adaptable to serve as they need, and vice versa as they.
Understanding. Be quick to listen, slow to speak.
That's patience and adaptability.
Still not.
It's my version of it.
Still working on this one, but how to not monopolize a conversation or monopolize a friendship. Still working on it.
I'm gonna get a monocle, and whenever I feel like you're starting to monopolize, I'm gonna throw it.
Monocle up. Mon up.
For me, I mentioned earlier was if I want friends, I need to be a friend.
So what's one way you're trying to be a better friend this year?
Matthew 7:12, do unto others as I would have them do unto me. So
An ad nauseum over here.
oh, he's quoting scripture.
Unequally yoked.
Actually,
So for me, I'm
Is
actually
that Greek or Hebrew?
Yeah. Well,
That's JP's joke from earlier. I was just saying it out loud.
get the BLB out
I will say for me personally,
every time.
You answering the same question?
yeah, it's just,
Don't quote
about to
Greek
quote
word
Colossians?
without me pulling
Colossians
out the
3. Me too.
interlinear.
yeah, dealing with conflict is
wasn't.
screw you, man. You don't deal with some conflict right now.
Wow.
You didn't hear what I said.
No.
He said, I was like, are you about to bring up Colossians? He goes, yeah, Colossians 3. I was like, me too. And he goes, really?
Anyways, trying to deal.
Friends do that.
Trying to deal with conflict and even
now, live on the. You know what? Just go solderize yourself.
And even receive conflict, like to,
I see the sweat running down his brow right now. He's like Jesus in Gethsemane over here.
Yeah.
It's different context of sweat and blood. When the Lord was on the cross and he was searching for us, there's a line by blind side. And it says, your eyes, they tried to search for mine, but I look away. I love that whole line about pitiful when he's on the cross. He saw this night and he saw this friendship happening. Wow. Yeah. And he was like, you know what?
Pastor John does say God factored in my stupidity to mess things up when he called me. So here we are. Thank you, Lord.
Us battle buddies from the pulpit.
That's true. The day I got ordained,
I stole your thunder.
Yeah.
No, I seriously sat down and I was like, kind of feel bad. I'm here and he's like, Jonathan, you and Gary are going to wage war and be battle buddies. I'm like, that's right. That's right.
We did it.
Anyway, JP, what were you saying?
I wasn't saying anything.
Conflict.
I got to work on conflict and like receiving conflict. If a brother has an issue with me,
you're so easy. I don't know who could have an issue with you. That's a friend,
well,
bro. I'm
Alexa and I. We did something that they said was no big deal, but we both apologized to you on Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah, I was like, "What the heck are you talking about, dude?"
That's me. No one ever.
That's me too. Yeah. I texted JP Friday. I was like, "Hey, dude, I'm overthinking something," and
except he was like, and then he texted me. He's like, Garrett's being a dick. Oh, sorry. That's probably a bad word on this podcast.
Oh my goodness!
And unless you go back to season 1, I'm mostly focused only podcast before YouTube. Then there was actually language and
archives.
Anyway, so for me, I'm trying to be more engaged and connected this year. Obviously, we all have kids, growing families, stuff like that. But just be more intentional of like trying to get together like once a month as a group. That's not this, like going to Foxbriar, the cigar bar, or whatever, just somewhere hanging out, go to the lake. I don't care. I don't want Garrett to be out in public and be like, oh, I saw Pastor Garrett and he was hanging out with people smoking cigars.
Brunch or something.
Yes. Well, that's be on a Friday.
Whatever. Okay. You get what I'm saying?
I'm not trying to we're
trying to plan it
right now.
I'm just saying.
Get the calendar out.
Any
well, Garrett, I got to. I mean, it's outside of Fridays. I got to plan it around Garrett's freaking schedule. The worst. Anyway, what's you know what? These other two don't matter. Why is biblical friendship worth pursuing? What's the biggest thing God has taught you about friendship?
It's essential. I mean, if
I said it's vital.
I said it's crucial. So
I
say pivotal.
I think to pursue Christ is to pursue friendship.
Whoa.
Wow.
Stephen Furtick over here.
Wow.
You know what?
We've hit the slap.
I really hope that video just quit
this.
30 minutes ago.
JP can corroborate
check and see.
I taught an entire men's meeting about this.
Oh, King of the Castle. I can share. About
friendship and vulnerability and that kind of stuff. And the capstone verse that I used was, this is how they'll know that you're my disciples.
Yeah.
For your love for one another.
And if you can't see that, seriously though, in this podcast and how we interact with each other and riff each other and make fun of each other, but it's obviously love. It's a sad and lonely life you're living, and I wish you the best. And there are hotlines to call.
Yeah.
Bro, I thought that was the door. I thought it was my daughter coming out. I was like, no. It was when Zach got to laughing so loud. Like where it was. But no,
I'm excited.
I think it's vital. It's healing. It's family. Those are the three things I said. That's what friendship should be. Mm-hmm. That's what a biblical friendship should be. That's why it's worth pursuing. And all of those things can and should emulate and push you closer to Christ. And that fellowship, that brotherhood should be something that makes you a better person. Iron sharpens iron,
Yeah. Heck yeah. Yeah, for me,
it's the transition. It's the timing of the transition. It's amazing.
Yeah.
You uncircumcised Philistine.
Yeah. I love that.
It's like he's closing down a worship service right now. It's transition to announcements.
Yeah,
Hanging
so
on by a thread.
I am over here.
And then Alani's going to kick in like in an hour. He's going to be so mad.
It's already kicked in.
That's when you sat up the first time.
Yeah. For me, everything in the kingdom is based off relationship. First and foremost, your relationship with Christ, and your relationship with other people. And what I've realized is that you have to have other people in order to have that blessed, fruitful, multiplicating life that God has called all of us to have. And if I isolate myself, or if I'm not intentional with God's greatest treasure and value, then I'm not taking the word of God seriously, especially when he says go and make disciples and teach them to observe and all those kinds of things. And, thank God Jesus was intentional.
Yeah.
So,
sorry, it's just the way sometimes, thank God. Just, I love you. You're
love
the best.
you.
I love your butterfly tattoo. It's great. It gives me butterfly eyes. So we made it through what friendship is, what it should look like, how we approach it, what the biblical backing is, some biblical friendships. We've covered a lot of friendship in terms of like actual, like beginning to end topical conversation. This is a good way to start back at a podcast. So I think it's important on a serious note for all of you, our listeners, our subscribers. First of all, thank you for listening. To kind of reflect on what we've talked about. There are some good nuggets in there, believe it or not. You should go back and listen to it about 50 more times and tell all your friends to listen to it about 50 more times. Really get the trick in. But reach out to your friends. There are people who care about you. You have friends that are there. Maybe you're the friend who needs to reach out to somebody. Do that. You're not as alone as you think you are. And, if you are, you're probably not, honestly, in a church. You're probably not plugged into any sort of community. You should do that. Don't isolate. Don't be weird. Everybody can find somebody. I mean, there's furries out there. So if they can find each other, you can find a friend that's normal too. So
this is insane.
You'll be fine. That's true though. I mean, I've sent you all the videos of the cat couple. It's crazy. What are we talking about next? And it's not next week. JP said next week's topic.
Well, yeah.
A few weeks from
now.
The next week's topic.
Yeah, the next topic.
Yeah.
Basically, are we talking about the supernatural and demonic stuff? And obviously, I'll flesh it out. I got plenty of ideas. Or are we going to talk about how we approach scripture? What's your vision for that?
Oh, I didn't know I have to provide it here.
Here.
It was going to be like, how do I approach scripture? How do I study it? What, translations, tools that I use.
So,
like posture in
Yeah.
approaching scripture. Just really like,
I kind of slouch in my chair.
yeah, I think that could be broken up into like two parts possibly. So I think we lean more spiritual. I think that would be easier just like to bang out real quick. The mustache.
Yeah, it's like its own
Just
emote.
hit the side.
So do the how do we approach scripture, flesh that out one? Or do the demonic one?
Demonic one.
Demonic.
Oh, okay.
honestly,
I think that would be
just
easier. I think
demonic.
that would be easier just
There's
Well,
to.
angels
yeah,
too,
it could be
gosh.
supernatural in the sense of encounters that we may have had, but also encounters of maybe healing.
We're talking about
or,
succuba.
I mean, I have a section in this notebook that I put succulent something. Never mind, I don't know. Succubus.
Succulent succubus?
Yeah. Well, no, that's what I put it in this notebook because I didn't know that's what I encountered. I wrote it down. And then when I went back,
Save it for the next pod, man.
when I went back and read it, I was like,
Out of context, I'm so wildly confused.
You have to show it for the next one to get
Yeah.
out there.
You know what one friendship I'm going to pursue? Marcelo.
Okay. Fly to
Next
Mexico.
time he comes in,
fly to Mexico.
we're hanging out with Marcelo. I'm hanging out with Marcelo. So thank you for tuning in. Mostly focused.
Mm-hmm.
It's been good to be back. Hope you've learned about friendship. Like, subscribe to our page. We'll be back with you in a normal, at least monthly regimen again. If not, maybe better. We'll see.
That's pretty wishful thinking. Yeah.
Very,
No.
yeah.
Yeah.
Monthly?
Monthly?
We were dead on monthly last time.
For
Every-
like maybe 3 times.
I looked at it. No, we were every 4 weeks consistently. Even if it was just 3 of us.
Okay.
We did it. We were on it.
What?
Like the
Okay.
hell episode was 3. I mean, we did it. Anyway, we'll be back on a semi-consistent basis. And me and Garrett have swore to each other a sacred oath that we're going to do these little shorts as long as it doesn't interfere with his new TikTok channel he's got going on. That's friendship right there.
Yeah.
No, but for real, we'll do some. Maybe we'll get some little clips saved. And I've told JP for years now I'm gonna go through the podcast and find clips he can put and post on YouTube Shorts or whatever for more content. But we'll see. Any closing thoughts, Garrett?
Yes, it's been fun.
Okay.
It's been real and it's been
What
fun.
have you been reading? Zach, here's your closing plug.
Oh, I'm reading The Divine Conspiracy.
My man, my dad just gave that back to me. He just
and
finished
I'm
it.
reading Rhythm of War by Brandon Sanderson.
Ooh.
What is your last PSA?
Shoot. What was it?
You don't have to not what you've been reading, just in general.
Yeah, he only specifically asked me that, so.
I've been so bad at reading this year.
Yeah, same.
Last year was awesome. This year's rough. The Bible, yes, but not other books.
Well, I stopped reading all the vitamins essentially, and now I'm just reading just straight scripture. That's what I'm doing.
I am on day 132 of my 6-month read through.
Amen.
I'm completely blank. I couldn't tell you. It's nothing of importance.
Yeah, I play the Oblivion remake.
Yeah,
it's great. It's a good time. And then Grand Theft Auto 6 comes out next year.
Next year?
Yep, May 2026. They delayed it. Other than that, that's it. We got a big. We'll have a good. This is going to be a good season of Mostly Focused. I'm excited for you all. Thanks for joining us.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be back with you soon. Much love, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.